Okay,
Speaks is
great.
back.
Now, Smut, are you okay with me just asking you a few questions to start this off, or did you have another plan?
Well, you guys are more than able to answer questions as well, so I'll don't want to be just me.
Yeah,
So,
hello.
Well, let's be real about who's getting
That's
roasted
good.
on Twitter right now.
well, no, I don't.
That's only because I'm not there anymore. I mean, I would enjoy
yeah.
this.
It'd come after you.
This would be great.
Well,
I'd
yeah,
have loved it.
I would like the rest of the people involved. We're talking about adaptations as well other stuff, and people have knowledge of books or
Absolutely.
shows or games to movies and this and that. So they have a bit more knowledge on specific topics. So that's good.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the reason I wanted to have this conversation was because what you said on Twitter. So I guess to start off with that, do you feel like some of the backlash you received is warranted?
It depends. I don't know exactly what specific people said. It was all kind of a blur, but the people from those groups just misconstrued it, and it was like, okay, this is not worthwhile to go into. And sometimes, even this morning, I tried talking to someone, and they first start with name calling. I'm like, okay, this is not going very well. I'll start having a conversation, and it's going fairly well. They start addressing things. They have some logical fallacies. I correct them for them. And then it ends, and it says, okay, well, thanks. And then they just call me a racist again. And I'm like, what did we just do for the past 20 minutes?
Is that the guy on, that's the guy on Twitter, right? I think I saw that.
That was this morning. Yeah, and I was just like, okay, well, that was a waste of time. So, I try my best to communicate.
Yeah.
And
because he was being very civil right up until the end, and then he was like, "You're just a common racist." It's like, well, if Smud's a racist, he's obviously not common because the words you're using are different than most racists I've ever heard. And I kind of wanted to dig into that a little bit, because the reason I ask you if you have, doubts or whether or not think some of it's warranted, is because I noticed that you deleted some of your tweets, specifically with Southpaw.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
It just shows it being unavailable, but actually, if you click on the reply itself, then it's gonna load it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, because it's just on Southpaw's part because you blocked him. My bad. Okay, so one of the main things I think that the problem is with here is that you seem like you're not really engaging specifically with what people are saying. You're engaging with elements of it, but sometimes it seems like you kind of skip over the specifics of what they said. Because I've seen your content before, and I think you're a pretty smart guy who's typically very rational. But Southpaw asks you, he says, okay, by this logic, do all Germans speak English? And then you link a study that shows that 56% of Germans speak English. Do you see how that looks really bad?
Why does that look bad?
Because he asks you, do all Germans speak English, as in 100%. And you link a study that says 56%.
So?
Okay, so just to
that answers the question though. Does Smud think that all Germans speak English? Well, no, 56% of them do.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Okay, well, let me build this up for you because I made a statement. I said like, oh, so white boy speaks English, right? That was my joke.
Yeah.
And he jumped to, well, then do all Germans speak English? I was like, well, that's 1 to 1 and then 1 to many. And I'm like, okay, you could jump to that, but that's not logically connected. And all we're doing is talking about logical deductions. So if I have a number from experience or observation, which was all I ever said was black people in a car that are dressed well are going to church. That was my entire deduction. And I have many examples of that in my Sunday morning romps going to brunch.
Correct, yeah.
So...
Okay, can you hear me now?
Hey, Skids.
Hey, Skids.
Skids, you there? Skids. Wakey.
He's here in spirit.
I lost him again.
Okay, well, don't worry, Skids, we'll get back to you later. Sorry about that. Anyway, go ahead.
So, just to clarify, with the black people in nice clothes on a Sunday morning, is the race element there that black people are more religious than white people on average?
No.
And what does the race have to do with it?
Because that's what I observed.
No. Yeah, there's...
if you go to a Baptist church or if you go to a Methodist church or, I don't know, Lutheran, and you observe most of these people are white or black, you go, you know what? people who are white go to this church. I'm not saying one causes the other. I'm saying from my experience, I can deduce when I see another family next week in a car who are black and well-dressed or on the bus and are well-dressed, chances are they're going to a place of worship. And then there's a lot of churches in my area and, prayer palaces and what have you. So there's lots of diversity in some of them. But in the smaller churches, like the Methodist ones and the Baptist ones, which pop up in like small commercial and small industrial sectors, it's usually one cultural or ethnic group.
But wouldn't that equally apply to white people then?
If I observed that, of course, yeah. But I didn't.
Okay, so I'm sorry, just to clarify here, I'm sorry if I keep going over the same ground. So your lived experience is that you go around on Sunday morning and you see a lot of black people in nice clothes, right? And they typically are going to church. So therefore you're saying that you have a right, because you've had that lived experience, to apply that to a wider context. So that if you see a black person like on TV, in nice clothes on a Sunday morning, they're probably going to church.
That's what could run through my mind, but I'm not saying this must be the case or this is 100%. I'm going through my experience. Obviously, everyone lives through their experience and say, oh, that reminds me of a time when I was on a Sunday brunch and I stopped in my car and I saw a bunch of people walk across the street to church. And I go, oh, okay, cool.
Okay. So that's a logical inference is what you're doing. And I don't think that came through the tweet, Smud. I know you may have intended it to. And what I'm gathering already is it seems like you have kind of a complex thought process going behind a tweet. And in the tweet, you're rather terse. Because I'm trying to remember what you said exactly on that tweet, but it was basically just, if I see a well-dressed black family on a Sunday morning, they're probably going to church. People look at that and they don't understand that you're talking about your lived experiences and that you're just making a reasonable inference based off that.
Well,
personally, I would also assume that, and I'm in Germany, and that may just be because 20 years ago, I was going through Berlin with a Germanistic student girl, a cute goth, and we were doing she always wanted to walk through town with a blindfold so that she could just take in all the sounds, because she had an artistic mind. So we were going through streets that we never went through. And we came by a really old church. Berlin is full of those. And we heard really, really interesting music that we're not used to in coming out of churches in Germany. Like, some are used for concerts, but this was not that. This was a Sunday. And I thought, this sounds interesting. Sounds really joyous, joyful. And so we took a peek inside. And it was only black people. And they were doing the whole gospel thing, and they were all amazingly well dressed. Outside the church throughout the week, you never see the black people in Berlin that well dressed. Maybe you see some businessmen in the city center, but that is very, very rare.
I will do you something better.
You saw very few black people back in the day in Berlin, but on a Sunday, they took out their best, just like Germans in older times did, dress their best, go to church and do their church thing. And well, they also had the very, very party-like gospel thing. I've rarely seen such happy people.
Right, and I will say, even on the metro where I used to romp around to get downtown, I will see not dressed black people holding hymnals and Bibles in their hand. And just by glancing at them, I'm like, oh, they're probably on their way to some 12:30 whatever. So it's not just these factors of they're black and they're well dressed that they add to the battery of knowledge and experience. So when I make a deduction, much like the way any detective would do, they're speaking from experience. They're not just making shit up. And if I was making shit up, I would holy crap, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And if we'd not built any basic pattern recognition, like, it may be wrong, and You're a better person if you once in a while question the patterns that you think you noticed. Otherwise, you jump to conclusions and then insist on the wrong conclusions. That's where you get the bad racism out. And but if we don't do this pattern recognition deduction thing at all, then we just always be confused and have to always start from zero, and that is just too much for people.
Right, like if a woman sees a large guy in a hoodie pulled down coming at her in an alley in a late night, he may have the best intentions, but it's in her interest from a pattern recognition standpoint to say, you know what, I'm going to walk the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it would be naive to let him approach you in that very circumstance.
Yeah.
Correct. Oh, okay.
say don't
Well,
let-
this is. Sorry, go ahead.
I'd say don't let anyone like at night alone approach you at a close distance. In general.
Okay. So the goal of my conversation and the reason I'm here, Smud, is I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but I truly believe that you have good ideas, intelligent ideas, that you did a bad job communicating in Twitter. And I don't want you to feel too pressured into conceding any of that. But I just want you to consider this, because the black person going to church in a nice suit is a good example. That's one of the least controversial things you said, and I'd probably make that same assumption if I saw a black person on Sunday morning. However, notice how you have all this thought process behind it about your lived experiences and how you used to go to brunch on a Sunday morning, and you failed to convey that in a tweet. And so it just comes out of nowhere. And people look at that after you made a tweet, which a lot of people consider to be very racist, and they say, "What? Why is he talking about black people on a Sunday morning? What the heck?"
Why can't I speak about
You
black people on a Sunday morning?
You absolutely can. It is in your right, and you're perfectly mentally and physically capable of doing it. However, from an optics standpoint, if you fail to provide the context of, you know, I've had this experience with black people because I go out on brunch on a Sunday morning, that makes it very clear what you're saying. It's unambiguous.
So that I don't see that as clear racist or whatever at all, because you don't need to have that personal experience. You can this is just get some life experience, and you will know patterns that you have not personally observed yourself. You can question them, you can verify them, but lots of things you will have come across or heard about in your life, and be that through media, can be just that. By watching American sitcoms. And we learned a lot about American culture because we got all the American sitcoms, because we don't have any of our own.
Okay. Your point is well taken, because what you're saying is that Smud didn't need to say his personal experience because it's valid if he had just seen it on television.
It's I go right to Godwin, and then we have it behind us. I go right to Godwin's law. Because you could just make the same argument that, just because you've never met a Nazi personally and he hasn't killed and threatened your family or the Jews next door, you can't know whether he's a bad person. That's just you having prejudices. It sounds kind of silly, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. I think you're right. I think that's actually a bad example. Personally, I wouldn't have tweeted anything racial at all after one of the tweets I'd done previously. And I'd actually kind of want to just rip the Band-Aid off and get right into this one. So you're responding to Dr. Sandhill, and I believe the context is Dr. Sandhill is asking you about Nick Fury and whether or not his character would be different were he a white person. And you responded, you said, so a character's race says nothing about their behavior? Okay, then we're done here.
Yeah.
Now, I think I have an idea about what you might have meant there, but I think I'd like to hear you say it, if it's okay, Smud.
Well, if we try to figure out someone's behavior from the race, we have to look at attributes from where they come from. So it's origin, their geography, where in the world they were born, how they were taught, what they were raised by, that sort of thing. It's the same idea with any other variable. So I believe there was some gentleman in the comments of we just did a Smud cast, I think, yesterday. He asked the same question. And I was like, well, if I knew more about Samuel L. Jackson as a person, like where he was born, I can derive his dialect. I can derive where he got his English from, because I think Samuel L. Jackson, he's a great actor, but I don't think he plays anything different outside of his repertoire. So it's
He mainly plays Samuel L. Jackson.
he plays himself. So if I knew something more about where he came from, as any good detective would do, and say, okay, he's probably from, Mississippi or New York or whatever. I have no idea. I'm not very well versed in Italian, or sorry, in American. I was about to say American, Irish, Black Italian was a joke we have. Then I would be able to, then I'd be able to do. Then he would be coming from this part of the world. He might have this kind of schooling. He might have this kind of outlook on the life, whatever. So that is what all we're doing, is we're trying to connect a basis of understanding, starting with race, because that's the question.
Well, it's a simple thing of like, even why a black person in the UK would be completely different to a black person in America.
Yeah, he doesn't sound like.
Even though they could come from the exact same bloody. Say the generations ago they came from the exact same slave ship, but why does one act a certain way and another do? It's because of the cultural differences.
Right.
So once you start realizing, there's differences between where people come from, you can start saying, well, there might be differences if they were different.
Well, you also have vast differences between the slave descendants that are, for simplicity's sake, not for accuracy, but for simplicity's sake, I say the U.S. black urbanites have a very, very, very different culture and outlook on life, and who they are, what they can achieve, what they should and shouldn't do, compared to immigrants nowadays coming from Africa. And they have completely different outlooks on Africa and what it is, and their knowledge about it as well. You almost can't compare the two. Like they're that different. It's as you could say it's as different as the Greek versus the Norwegian.
And this would be the understanding of that culture or that history and time where this person might have been born and taught and raised, and that's just the character. Or sorry, that's just the actor, not the character. So when we look at, I don't know, Nick Fury, the character, I don't know too much about his portrayal, but I can do that with other roles he's had and say, okay, he's probably going to have some slang. He's probably going to get angry. He's probably going to get, I don't know, swear perhaps. That's what he likes to do. So you're thinking, okay, that might happen. I don't know. Was the Avengers PG-14? I don't think I remember the age group.
PG-13.
I think there was. I can't put because I saw most of the movies. I only saw once.
Okay, well,
I have this image that there was one time where they made a black culture race, maybe N-word joke with Nick Fury.
Okay, well,
and you couldn't do that if he wasn't played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Well,
but I'm not sure in what movie that was.
All right, well, if that were the case, anyone in that film were to swear, it would be him. So you're like, okay, if this is, PG-14, I think 14 you could swear. I don't remember the exact rules, but okay, fine. I'm expecting a burst of emotion from him. He gets angry. He shoots someone. He does an action scene. That's what we're expecting just on knowing the actor. So all we're doing is basing it on as much information we have, and we can do still like it's pretty weak to do a deduction based off just race and these things, but you still can do it. It's not impossible. It's not disconnected. Like people are trying to say there's no relationship between behavior and genes and behavior and phenotypes and where you come from. It's like, well, there has to be. I mean, it's not.
Hello, guys. Can't hear me? I'm sorry. I've been having mic issues for a little bit.
Hey, Skids.
Yeah, it's all right, man. Yeah,
thank you.
I was trying to talk, but I realized that the input wasn't working on Discord. But anyway, I have been living with a black guy recently, like for college and stuff, and I have definitely learned more things about black people that I never knew of. So I kind of understand where you're coming from when you're talking about seeing black people on Sundays, or just having personal experience with different types of people.
Well, Bears gave me the best impression.
Oh my god. Oh dear.
That's my mic sound. Is it okay?
You're fine. Thank you.
I mean, I know two black guys from London. One is lives in the you could say the slummy part. He's big in fighting games, and doesn't like labor at all. And the other one is from central London, speaks the most posh that since Jacob Rees-Mogg, and he hasn't said, but I think he would vote Labour. And the two couldn't be more different. And this is where the main thing that it goes into the main thing that I'd rather call them weird, because they're all a bit weird in the head. The weird right and the weird left get completely wrong about statistics, and especially the whole nature versus nurture thing. Because we talk about statistics, we talk about large groups, we talk about majorities and trends. That never says anything about one individual we're looking at. You cannot predict one individual in the group from the whole group. You can say, okay, this is the stats about the whole group. These are the trends. It's like with the sexes, where they trend into what professions they prefer. But we couldn't, if we just randomly see a man or a woman, we couldn't say what professions they take. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with race groups, and that also depends on how minute do you go. Do you just go the big three? Do you go into ethnic groups, tribal groups, etc.? Then you get very, very different trends. And if we go down to the individual, we may have a couple completely random matches from the general trends, but we couldn't determine which it will be. That's the difference between individual and group. And the left,
Amen.
when it accuses people of racism, they always assume, oh, you think everyone is like that. Everyone is like that. And no, that's not the case. And the right, the weird right, does a similar thing. They just do it with different races.
Okay.
Sounds great. That's fantastic. So just to kind of reiterate what you guys said in an abridged version, and please listen clearly. What you're saying is, based on a character's race, you can make a reasonable inference as to where they came from. That will tell you about what their life experiences may have been. Those experiences will influence their behavior.
Yes.
Yeah. So I could make the prediction that a black African in Northern Europe would have a likelihood of developing depression, because he can't, without supplements, develop enough vitamin D in his skin. And when that falls below a certain point, that doesn't just impede the immune system, it also causes depression, which is where we get winter depression from. And we found this out I think about 20 years ago in Hamburg, Germany, because the very few black pregnant women had massive vitamin D deficiencies. And that's how we noticed that. So they got supplements, because what the female body does is, there's a fetus, and the female body puts all resources possible into the survival of the fetus, which means that the little vitamin D that the mother's body had was all pumped into the fetus so it could develop healthy to be carried to birth. So because of the mothers, we figured out, vitamin D is a thing. Or not is a thing, but is a relevant thing between the races. So it's not, if you have a very dark skin tone and you come to Europe, especially Northern Europe, you don't have supplements, you're gonna have a bad time.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, that's all very helpful. I want to make something very clear here. What you guys just said is a million times better than what you tweeted, Smudboy.
Yeah,
And
the problem is Twitter, you only have so many characters, so that's also kind of part of the issue.
Yeah, and also on Twitter.
Wait, I want to address that real quick. Sorry. I'm sorry to call you out. So I would say nothing rather than tweet this. This is terrible from an optics point of view. And just to be real clear, I'm sorry, Guy, I'll let you go in a second. What you said, not so many words, you said a character's race says something about their behavior. That's what you said. You didn't say what we all just said in this Discord call, which was intelligent and reasonable. You said, so a character's race says something about their behavior.
Yeah. Well, that's also kind of, because it's kind of hard to say what you mean from just try texting online. Like, it's kind of hard for you to understand again just by simply typing it out. It's easier to verbally communicate it.
Absolutely, it is. I completely agree. Which is why I would never say something like this in a tweet.
So that is
this tweet is terrible optically. Just don't say anything.
I agree. It is very badly articulated. The thing is where I think that aims in a good interpretation was on Twitter. Everyone always jumps for the worst interpretation possible, and especially the left goes for this sounds vaguely racist. And if something sounds a little bit more than vaguely racist, they jump on it even more than when it's just vaguely racist. And then you get put words in the mouth, etc. What I wanted to say about this one is we're talking movie characters, not persons, people, real life people. We're talking movie characters. Movie characters, especially in the big movies, often or almost all the time are built on tropes that we already know, that are already established. So when we see Irish guy, we can assume might be someone who gets into bar fights, because that's what the Irish guy is often used for. Texan guy with especially if he has the hat on and goes further into the cowboy shtick, we can imagine he's going to pull a gun at some point and be gun heavy. Whether that is true about Texans or not, on all Texans especially, doesn't matter. This is a stereotype about Texans. That is used in movies. This is a very extreme example. So if you do something about it's a German, you're usually going for a Bavarian, and many Germans do not want to be conflated with Bavarians and the other way around. This is a fun thing. So even when Germans are portrayed, it's usually Nazis or Bavarians. Can't help it. It's just a thing. So when we're talking movies and we get black guy, it is usually, or let's say quantitatively, very often black urban black guy, which is this special the hood culture. Unless we get Morgan Freeman, then we get Morgan Freeman.
Yep.
Or we get Eddie Murphy, or we get Samuel L. Jackson.
Exactly, yeah. And sorry, I actually think the gentleman on the far right, I cut him off. Did you want to say something?
Pretty much what he said, but also now I don't.
That
have
was
Twitter.
also ill-phrased, by the way.
I'm so sorry.
What are you on about?
I never. So I don't know anything about Twitter, so I don't know how conversations work on Twitter. But I'd rather when someone besides how the Twitter guys do it, but considering conversation like this, we could have. I don't know if you can, but can you have a private conversation where you explain your reasoning?
Oh,
Is
yes.
that possible? Yeah.
Yeah, I tried reaching out to people and they just ignored me or said one thing and never responded again. So it's not like I haven't tried. I even went on to Southpaw's server? I can't remember the name of it, and started talking to the people there.
Oh god, Southpaw.
Which was not a good idea. And
yeah, I mean Southpaw. He's a classic backstabber. I mean, just the way how he turns on you so quickly. I mean, Ari didn't like him before. Ari didn't really like him for quite some time, but this only makes me hate him even more.
Well, I don't mind.
Okay. Smart, I have a question. Like, did you try to communicate with Southpaw's server after or before the raid happened on your server?
That was after.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like just relaxing and whatever. I was like, maybe he'll say, look, because he's on my list. I was like, I can just pop in and say hi.
Because
And
I noticed that there was like a few guys that you offered that you would like DM them or voice chat them privately, and then they never responded. Instead, they doubled down on just like calling you out.
I have no problems. I said, hey, you want to talk about this? I don't know who you are, but fine. And then one guy, I only had one good argument, and he was quoting me on skin tone. He's focusing on skin tone. And I was like, okay, that's great, because skin tone can be many things. You could get a tan. You could get burnt. You could get a job in the fields. You can get a job, and it pays for going to a spa to get a tan. Like, there's all kinds of variations on what that means. And to say you can't connect that to behavior or social standing or economic values, it's like, well, I mean, we're just typing hypothetically here. There's lots of variations on how you get darker skin, or I don't know, you run through the mud.
So I just want to be explicitly clear here, Smud, and I'm sorry if I'm coming across as blunt.
I don't care.
I'm not very tactful, and I know you're way more experienced than me on the internet. You're far more popular than me. This tweet you did is the kind of tweet that would end your career. This could end like Mahler's career if he tweeted this. You understand that, right?
Yeah, but I don't care. It's Twitter, and when
no.
it's
I
nothing
think
to me.
what he means is that like Twitter can have an effect on, say, your viewers and such.
Yes.
So like overall, even if it's just Twitter.
Well, honestly,
it
I've
has
gained
a-
followers on Twitter, so I don't know what the problem.
Exactly.
I don't.
Those are
really-
hate followers,
Yeah.
Smud. Those
Hopefully
are
it's
hate
not.
followers.
Hopefully it's
really-
not Nick Fuentes.
I really don't.
Well,
They're there to dunk on you.
Hold on.
Well, they haven't so far. So.
Yeah, well,
Just waiting.
the main thing is at the end. So what? So what? Twitter's just filled with. Twitter's a cesspool filled with everyone just trying to become king of the cesspool.
Yeah,
And it's like you don't have to do anything to get popular on Twitter. Like, yeah, I do this, but I'm not a YouTuber. I don't give a shit about making my name on YouTube.
I'm not 17 years old. This is not a big deal.
Yeah.
I honestly have no personal investment in talking to people on Twitter. It's the thing that's there while I'm waiting for my videos to upload or I'm doing other things.
This is going to expand well beyond Twitter. I guarantee that in the long run, you will see a drop in viewership on this. Guaranteed. This is terrible. I understand you're a real guy. You're cool. You're a cool guy. This is going to wreck you. And just to be clear, even if it wasn't going to wreck you, I certainly wouldn't want people having a tweet which honestly reasonably infers that I'm a racist, even though I know that's not what you meant.
They can do their best. It doesn't really bother me. And if we're talking about Twitter, whoop-de-doo.
Oh, Smud. Well, apparently Mahler is having a super chat catcher right now, and Jay's just spilling everything that's been going on. So, can I call you Can I just call you Simpsons?
Sure.
Yeah, you can call me good if you want.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Yeah,
Good's
right. Considering since now Mahler and all of most of EFAP's going to turn on you, this is going to have a pretty big bad domino effect.
Because Jay is putting words into Smud's mouth.
Yeah, I mean, well, Jay's an idiot anyway. I mean, he is kind of a pussy.
Wisp, I'm sorry. Please don't say that. You agreed that the tweet was really poorly worded yourself. This is
I do say that because Jay insists that Smud complained about the cup size of the actress of Faye Valentine in the Netflix adaptation, which he didn't. He complained about the overall looks.
Oh yeah,
which is costume, body type, and everything. That is not just the cup size.
Yeah, I responded to Jay on Twitter about that. I remember I saw someone that you liked it. I was talking about like how you would replace Henry Cavill, some 400-pound black guy. I mean, that's not what you think about when you think of Superman. I mean, obviously, when it comes to like casting choices for an actor, actor needs to have the right physique, the right appearance, especially if we're talking about a character that's already been pre-established to look a certain way.
Okay,
so can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So here's the overall. Smud worded it wrong. I completely agree. He worded it, and I can definitely see how it can. And I can definitely see how it can easily be taken in a different context and be like, oh yeah, this is racist and whatever. In the same time, however, it doesn't give, however, the justification the other guy to just keep going and sometimes lying, similar to how Wisp said, sometimes lying.
No, of course not.
Upside. So the whole mess isn't like on one person alone.
Sure, but I'm not talking to Jay. I'm not talking to CJ. I'm talking to Smud right now. That's all I can do.
You know what? Hold on, Lazarus, can I just interrupt?
Go ahead.
What I find incredibly funny, and I've tried to explain quite a bit, and obviously, Simpsons is obviously you're looking at Twitter with what the responses are with everything.
Yes.
Well, what I find so funny is these are the people who are going after Smud the most and everything are exactly the same people who went after the Critical Drinker when Falcon and the Winter Soldier came out and his views on it.
I heard
the exact same.
Drinker.
Yeah, but there's the other.
Southpaw defended Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
That's what I heard. Like I remember I was talking about on Discord in the Grinch chat, and apparently he initially did like it, but when EFAP said, "Oh no, the show's shit," he just hopped on the bandwagon.
He has no principles.
But my point is this: at that point, the exact same rhetoric came up with what was happening with Smud, but in like different contexts. People said exactly what you said, Simpson, that this could turn EFAP against a Critical Drinker because it was all blah 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 and all that sort of stuff, and it would be the death of his channel, and it would grow bigger. We're 6 months down the line. Critical Drinker's perfectly fine. There's no stuff. In fact, he's talking to the people who were against him.
Okay.
At the end of the day,
Hawk, you talk first. I'm sorry.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, it's just Twitter drama. It's going to be forgotten with the next load of stuff. At the end, and honestly, Twitter's been quiet in regards to controversies for EFAP to really get its teeth into, and this community to get its teeth into. Once everything starts opening up, more shows come out, more things come out, and more takes on Twitter come out. We'll move on to something else, and that's the way of the internet. So I don't really think this is going to be the death of Smud Boy. Even if every single person on EFAP hates Smud, so what? So what? Everyone on EFAP hates what? Bloody I don't know. Say Jack Saint or Taxon or whatever, and they still run.
Yeah. So what I'd care about is not how many views do I get to cater to that. I wouldn't care who is the thought leader, so that I subject myself to that and stop my own thinking. I'd rather keep on thinking for myself and articulating myself and trying to articulate myself better. That's all. Yeah, but I wouldn't subject myself to some thought police, especially if that thought police is putting words in my mouth.
Okay, can I say what I want to say now?
Go for it.
Anyway, well, I heard Southpaw did unironically say want to call like the EFAP audience like alt-right white nationalist or something. I've heard about that, so I don't really take anything he says about Smud being racist seriously.
So I'm gonna kind of interrupt. I think I watched that live stream. So Smud was debating, I think, EFAP's Discord server, the community, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and his friend said like, okay, I don't want to deal with these people because I think it was something regarding the N-word. I don't remember. Not gonna act like I do, but it was something regarding the N-word and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, it's like. Southpaw's point was that sometimes Mahler can attract quote unquote right wing or like radically right wing people. I think that was the claim. I remember.
So did German stand-up comedian Serdar Somuncu. He's Turkish family background, but he's you can't be more German than him actually, for having read after a yellow press paper that is known for exaggeration and defamation on stage. That was his show. He read Hitler's Mein Kampf on stage. The first person since the war who publicly read from that. And he got a lot of heat for it. He needed police protection even. And he said himself that a normal German would probably not have been able to do it. And even while he was making fun of the book, he was showing people how fucking stupid that book is and that there is no need to be afraid of it because it is retarded. Hitler's book is retarded. And yet, so he got, of course, death threats and bomb threats from neo-Nazis. He also got death threats and bomb threats from Antifa because he dared read from the Nazi book that the socialist fear will turn people into Nazis. You have to be already brain damaged that book can turn you into a Nazi, seriously. And the thing is, and he talked about that after his tour, that to his surprise, it completely baffled him, and he kept his cool so that nothing weird would happen. There were actual neo-Nazis of various ages who, after the show, congratulated him and thanked him under tears for how wonderfully he read that, and they meant that unironically. There are the neo-Nazis who believe that this is a good thing, and that this man read it on the stage. They are already mentally completely gone. So yes, anything you do, this is a very easy to understand example, but anything you do can attract people from every walk of life, every ideology, every mental delusion. That is not your concern. That is not your responsibility. That will happen just because there's a lone Nazi coming in because you do a thing and he happens to like it. Doesn't mean that you have to stop the thing now. That is a thought terminating stance.
Yes, I don't think you're going to find anybody here who disagrees with that. That's not what's happening here. If Smud,
I'm meaning this is the same for Mahler. Mahler shouldn't give a shit about that either.
Yeah, Mahler doesn't. Like, Southpaw wasn't blaming Mahler. Just to I should have clarified that. My bad. Like, Southpaw didn't directly say Mahler's guilty of this.
Okay, sorry. So I was just going back to Smud here. If Smud had tweeted out what we were talking about in this call about how race can have an effect, where it can influence where you grow up, and that can have an experience on you, and those life experiences can influence behavior, he absolutely would be attracting the kind of crazy people like Wisp is talking about. Absolutely. And in that case, I would say Smud,
he would still attract the lefties who would be offended by him because he would talk about race in the first place. And this is something I wasn't able to squeeze in the beginning. The radical left, or most of the left even, goes completely bonkers when you mention any biological basis for having any effect on your health, your behavior, differences between you and others, and regardless of scale, because they believe in a straw man, and a straw man that absolutely no one believes in, not even the weird right wing. The weird part of the right wing. They believe in the straw man that whoever brings up biological issues about, be it race or anything in that regard, or sex, or the sexes, believes that is 100%, that 100% is biologically determined. Nobody believes that. That is solely their misconception, straw man, and slander of everyone who's not on their side, because they believe that biology has zero effect on any of these things. That's what they need for communism to work. That's why they insist on it.
Right, but I mean, Wiss, I'm sure you'd agree Twitter is a leftist platform. So you'd probably also agree.
Well, it's a cesspool. It's where discourse goes to die, and that is
Right.
also why nobody had the in-depth conversation to clear things up in private in DMs on Twitter, because they're not interested in that. They are interested in the blood sports, in owning in the public space. Like, look at this evil person. Look at the heretic. Look at the witch. Look at the Nazi. Let me look. See how I put my dagger into it. Look how he bleeds. That's what they want.
Indeed. And just refocusing back on Smud, again, to clarify, if Smud had said all those things about race, environment, and behavior that we talked about in this Discord call, which was relatively intelligent, and people still came after him, which some would, I would be totally on Smud's side. I'm like, who cares about those guys? They're crazy. I'm going to do my things. I'm going to just stream. That's fine. Most of us, I think, here have agreed that this tweet is terrible. This isn't that tweet. This tweet is just on its own is moderately racist, just flat out, to the point where I would say delete this tweet and just on your Twitter, on your main timeline, just explain very clearly what you did. Now, some people are still going to hate you. Some people are still going to come for you. Some people won't understand. However, a lot of people will be like, okay, I get what Smud is saying now. I'm going to come back to him.
No thanks.
Okay, that's completely up to you.
I would absolutely be against deleting any of it, because then they would just say that, like, oh, he's erasing evidence. Maybe he wrote something else.
There's no winning this.
And it's also I agree with that. If I would add, if that happened to me, and then I would add some clarification in part, where if I saw it as ill-phrased, if I would agree to that, I would acknowledge that, but I would not delete the original message, because if I did that, there would be no ability to verify what was even the problem. And then people who exaggerate over it, their narrative will stand. And people will keep believing that, while you can never prove back what was the actual thing even about.
That's a very good point, Wisp. I agree with that. So, to admit my statement, I would quote tweet the original tweet and then have a long disclaimer like Wisp is suggesting.
I would, but not if I was pressured into it. I would have to believe in it, and I might just disagree with that in full. A long time ago, I had a Twitter account, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to, and that was the Twitter was very young at the time.
Everyone sit down. Yeah. Whisper's got a long story about Twitter.
Get the cocoa out. It was about political communication within the party, and it was already then that people were completely taking you out of context, putting words in your mouth, and it was absolutely horrible. The only thing Twitter is useful is as a news aggregator. Anything beyond that, just leave your hands off it. It is impossible to have a conversation on that makes sense. Most people are not competent enough to have a clear conversation in the first place, because they don't know how to articulate themselves so that they are not misunderstood. And on Twitter, you are very limited in how many letters you can use. So you have to cramp that down even further. And that, especially with the old system where it was like 180 characters, even very articulate, intelligent people were not able to convey messages properly in that little space. Because
you can just type something on Discord, something long, take a screenshot of it, and then just send it to Twitter. Like somewhere where you can just make it very long and just post a picture of it on Twitter.
Or just take a picture of your balls and say "suck it." That's I joke. It's honestly, it's up to Smud for whatever he decides to do with it. I mean, when I called New Zealand a hellhole,
they're just going to somehow try to spin it to make you seem even worse. I mean, no matter how much, you can pretty much suck their balls. If they just won't.
Skids, just to be clear, That may be the case. There may be some crazy people who look at it and say, "Ha, this makes you even look worse." I don't care because those people are crazy. Many of the people.
Why cater to them in the first place?
No. Because
exactly.
and this is
That's what
really
he's saying.
important. Some of the original people who replied to Smud's tweet aren't crazy people. In fact, most of them are reasonable. They're smart guys. In fact, the first time I saw it, and I'm a pretty smart guy, I saw it. I was like, "Holy cow, Smud! What the heck are you smoking?" That was my initial thought. And the only reason I came onto this call to talk to you about it is because I spent like half an hour thinking about it. I was like, okay, what does he probably mean by this? Most people won't do anywhere close to that amount of work. They're just scrolling up on their Twitter timeline. They see a crazy tweet and they're like, holy cow, this guy's crazy. And they move on with their life.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, please.
here's the thing. I don't know. You're a pretty smart guy. That's true. So far, yeah. And you also this. I don't mean it like that, Hawk. Please don't take it this way. What I mean is that you. I thought you were laughing. Turns out you were coughing. My bad.
Yeah, sorry.
My bad is my bad. My point is that you, unlike anyone else, decided to at least entertain the idea. To go in and say, "Hey, Smud, what do you mean by that?" Now, people like say Southpaw, Jay, all these people who I assumed they and Smud were at least in good terms, not friends, but in good terms or talking terms, or who I'd argue are closer to Smud than you, CinemaSins. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I've never spoken with Smud before.
Okay, so Jay and Southpaw, arguably closer to Smudboy than you are, decided instead of, "Hey, Smud, you want to talk about this in private? Hey, whatever, like, hey, Smud, hey, whatever, like, let's chat about this. What do you mean by that? What the hell?" And that's it. And like maybe Smud gets into a conversation, perhaps even a podcast. Who knows? That would have been fun, but they didn't do that. They decided, instead of entertaining the idea, they decided, okay, I have my own agenda and I want to push it.
Okay, Tadros, that's a fair point. I can't comment on that to any significant degree because I don't know the context of Jay and Southpaw's relationship with Smud. If they're like best friends hanging around every week on Discord calls, chummy, then yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if that's the case. Is it Smud?
Who exactly?
Yeah, that's it.
Jay and Southpaw. Are you good friends with them?
Or in good terms.
Jay, I only spoke to last time on EFAP 100, and he was odd, to say the least, on his understanding of the hidden message of the Matrix, which is apparently a trans narrative, and whatever. And a lot of people and I were just dumbfounded at what to explain things to him on what a metaphor was, but apparently that was not important. And Southpaw has been part of my Discord for a while. He's still there. He hasn't been on any of the Smudcasts in a long while. Same with Evan. And I believe Grant was on once. And Grant is, I mean, we tried talking on Twitter. That was a waste of time. Evan responded with one fairly innocuous tweet, which was a GIF. And I responded to him saying, "Hey, Evan, what's the problem? You want to talk?" And he never got back to me. There was another person called Zodiac, I believe, and that was one of the people I DM'd. They said I have problems, and then they never. I thought they wanted to have an intelligent conversation because they quote tweeted me. So I'm reaching out to people, and they're not talking. So I don't see how a public Twitter response will do anything, especially when what you were referring to on that tweet was not what people were responding to me with. They were responding to me with the joke reference to the existence of IQ tests, which is like saying, "Hey guys, you know what?
We can get into that.
Sure.
Later.
I mean, I want to get on with the adaptations because I want to talk about
sure
all the wonderful stuff.
But sorry, just to respond to Tadros's original point, you barely know these people. Let's be clear.
I barely know everyone on the panel. I don't know any of these guys aside from what we talk about when we're together, like right now.
Oh, well, these guys right here, at least you have wasn't Wisp on your stream like the other day? I think you see these guys more frequently, right?
Well, we talk a lot.
You haven't spoken to again,
Oh,
addressing
yeah.
Chadros's point. You know these guys way more than Jay. You haven't talked to Jay in a year. Jay is under no obligation to you as a friend, quote unquote, to come into here and like try to contact you and say, "Hey man, what do you mean?" When you do a tweet that frankly looks insane, he's under no obligation.
Yeah. He
I'd
does under no
say he
obligation.
doesn't know
to
him.
Carry on with the stuff. No,
I think a
that's
lot of
fine.
what Jay says is completely insane.
Yeah.
That may be the case, but just to reiterate, Jay, Southpaw, Evan, all those guys under no obligation to Smud as a friend because they barely know him to dig deeper. They can just say, "Okay, F that guy, he's out."
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
here's the
that's-
thing.
that's-
I would agree.
Hold on. I just want to say I 100% agree with that, but at the end of the day, that can also mean that Smud can just say, "Fine, I'm out," with that as well. So it's both sides can easily just say, "Yeah, that's fine, we're out."
If Smud is comfortable with a huge chunk of Twitter thinking that he's a racist, then yeah, he can just back out.
God! A huge chunk.
A huge chunk of Twitter is social justice maniacs who think everyone who's not on their side is racist. That's already the case.
Let me
We're the people who criticize Captain Marvel. We're evil.
Let's be clear. A huge chunk of Twitter has good justification for thinking Smud is racist based off this.
I don't think they're able to deduce anything themselves.
Can I?
No.
They see random words and have emotional reactions.
I want to tackle what CinemaSins said. I agree with you overall, but well, yes, I agree. They don't have the obligation to just go to Smud like, "Hey, talk to me," or "Hey, hey, whatever." I don't think they have the obligation to go gossip about it either. Or rather, they should gossip about it either. Now they have the right. Again, like it's technically you can do it. I'm just saying, morally speaking, it's like, yeah.
When you say gossip about it, are you talking about like them quote tweeting him and doing like a silly meme?
From what I've heard, please correct me on this because I'm not. I rarely check on Twitter, ever, because I don't have Twitter. From what I've heard, there's been like Southpaw. I think he said like, "Oh, I regret ever knowing Smud."
He's going really drama queen about it.
I think he did say that.
It's his trionic the manual.
Oh yeah, goodbye, Smud boy.
As I said, he's just a classic backstabber.
So again,
so like,
it's just attention whoring.
My point is like usually if you guys, especially if you guys don't know each other very well, in a moral standpoint, like you can share. Sometimes you can share this privately with your friends and stuff. That's a different case, right? Everyone does that, but to go in like publicly, just saying it to everyone, I think that's kind of a little bit petty.
Saying what?
Like saying, for example, I regret ever knowing Small Boy and God, this guy, whatever, right?
Yeah, and that's a reason to not take people seriously.
Well, okay.
I think that's a bit petty,
honestly, guys.
Not gonna lie.
This does not bother me in the slightest. You know, people were like messaging me privately. Are you okay? Is everything? It's like I don't care. Maybe I'm antisocial. Maybe I'm narcissistic. Maybe I'm a stoic. I don't care. Now I'm just being nice about it because I like to be friendly and we talk about things. And I like the academic exercise, but it really doesn't bother me. So thank you for your suggestions. I appreciate that. It's nice to reach out, but it just doesn't really bother me.
Okay, Smud, will you just field one question about that, and then I can shut up about it?
Okay.
Do you think it's reasonable to construe this tweet, which again, just to clarify, says, so a character's race says something about their behavior? No, sorry. So a character's race says something about their behavior. Because it was a rhetorical question. Do you think it's reasonable to see that tweet and say, yeah, that's racist?
It was a character's race says nothing about their behavior.
It was a rhetorical. It was an awkwardly phrased tweet because you use a negative and it's a rhetorical question. But the clearer version of what you say is a character's race says something about their behavior. That's what you're saying.
Okay, so did you quote me properly or not?
No. So the actual quote is, so a character's race says nothing about their behavior.
Thank you.
Okay, then we're done here. So but unfortunately, that's kind of poorly worded. Sorry, I'm an autistic blog writer. Get rid of the negative. Get rid of the rhetorical question, because that is a rhetorical question, correct?
Was there a question mark at the end?
There is, correct.
Okay, so is it a question?
It is a question.
It is a question. Thank you.
Yes, correct. It's a rhetorical question.
Is it?
Is it not?
I'm asking you.
It looks absolutely like a rhetorical question. That's all I can infer.
So if a person has a weapon at a murder scene, do we expect something from him? Does he have an alibi? Does he have an excuse?
Well, he probably should have an excuse if he doesn't expect to go to jail.
Okay, so what would he say? Oh, I didn't mean to kill anyone. I just found the knife. I picked it up. I did not do it. Something like that, right?
If he's smart.
There's a response to be had. So no, it's not rhetorical. I want to know. That's the issue we're trying to discuss.
But then you say, okay, then we're done here.
Because that's what they said. Yes, they did not care. They do not care about the issue. They assume anything with race is irrelevant. And if that's the case, I have nothing to say. I can't talk about standard deviations or normalized charts or anything about normal distributions. They have no idea what I'm going to talk about.
No, stop. Smud, this is coming so clear now. So I think, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. You're terrible at wording tweets. You could be a great writer. You're terrible at wording tweets. So when you said, okay, then we're done here, it wasn't that it was a rhetorical question. You were asking a question, and you're like, I am actually done with this conversation.
There's a question mark at the... What do you want from me?
No, I'm asking you a question. So when you say okay, then we're done here, it's not because the question is so ridiculous that somebody might not even know the answer to. What you're saying is, I don't really want to continue this conversation. I asked a question, but we're done.
Well, at that point, they've reassessed, they haven't reassessed, they repeated themselves over again. And that's what a lot of these people do after I try to address the questions. Because all it is name calling and trying to oh God, this morning was just dumb. I don't know what you call it, logical fallacies that, race determines something. And I'm like, wow, you want to make a deterministic statement about genetics. Like, good luck trying to get me into that one. So
yeah, of course.
What's the point?
Just to be clear, I'm sorry, I want to be so clear here, and I'm sorry that I keep hammering this, but this is crucial. So when you say, okay, then we're done here.
Yes, that means we're done.
That's not necessarily in response to how ridiculous the question is. You're just, in general, you're done with the conversation.
Yeah, I get really bored and tired of people saying the same shit. Like, I blocked Voice from the Radio. I know the guy, right? We spoke about it on Discord. Why? Because he's not going to give me any information that's going to help the discussion. He's just trying to pry. And he's never called me a racist. But that's what it's leading. That's what he's thinking. Is Smud a racist? I'm like, this is dumb. Right. You're wasting my time. This is not what you do if you're looking for information.
Right. Okay. So Smud, again, I'm so sorry for being so blunt. You are terrible at formulating tweets, because what this reads as is a rhetorical question. The okay, then we're done here after the question seems to imply that the question is ridiculous, that anybody would just fathomly have a different response to you. You understand that, right?
I'm sure my grammar could be different. I'm sure the way I talk could translate better to English. I'm sure. This is Twitter.
Smud. No, Smud. This is important.
Cinema,
this is why people are calling you racist.
Can I interject? Just spell out what message you take that tweet implies directly, and talk about whether that is true or not.
Or do you have like a screenshot of that tweet, like the exact same thing?
I do. Do you want me to post it in the DMs?
Yes, please, because we're having like problems with this.
Yeah, I apologize. Give me a sec.
That'd be much easier.
So weather's been pretty okay in the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been nice. Yeah.
Oh, a British
That's
person
okay.
talking about the weather.
Is it
Oh.
raining yet? Hawk?
No, it wasn't. It's not. It's been really nice. No, I'm just waiting for this tweet to come up. I thought I'd just talk about random stuff.
That's okay. We got Wisp here. You can fill in the blanks. It's all right.
What?
So
Yeah,
sorry.
but-
I apologize. So I've actually never sent a picture on Discord. So I'm trying to copy it from a Google Docs into the actual Discord chat. Do you have to? Yeah, I know. Do you have to actually download it and then put it in here?
I think you can just
I've
drag
never
it from
done
the
that.
Google Docs here, and it
You
will.
can just drag it directly.
Could you just copy and paste the link and just?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have the original tweet. I have the screen.
People are
grab
making
tweet.
dossiers about some nothing burger like this.
If
Nothing
you
burger.
can copy, right-click on the image
Guys,
and copy
Twitter
image.
is serious business. You have to understand this. It's
Yeah.
very, very important.
Very serious. Yeah, very serious. I once got death threats from people from New Zealand because I said it was a hellhole.
Oh my.
So
Generally,
I
on the
I
matter,
honestly-
as
I
you're
can't watch
looking,
rugby anymore.
yeah, as you're looking to put this into Discord, there's a similar issue about the infamous book that among it's been
Among
written
Us.
somewhere. That Herrnstein and Charles Murray worked on, the bell curve.
Yep.
And that is mostly ill-phrased, where the people have problems with, or where the left latches onto because they don't like the content. There is I wouldn't say follow-up, but the Neuroscience of Intelligence by Haier, Haier, and he also clarifies in that, he explains what that the whole intelligence thing really is, and he also makes clarifications on the ill-phrased parts of the bell curve. So if you're interested into that, this is big book that mainly got its controversy because of ill formulations. The data is still the same. Maybe there's a misinterpretation here and there somewhere. That's what happens in science, because the science is never settled. But, well, if there's a topic, this is especially when there is a topic that one political side doesn't like, they will not fight the actual data and the actual logic. They will latch onto bad formulations that can raise emotional reactions, so that they can get into emotional arguments, because that is what sways most people, because most people are not thinking, they mistake their emotional reactions for thinking. And that's what Twitter mainly is. It's emotional reactions of children of all ages.
And that's mostly at Herrnstein, because everyone knew that Murray was what the hell was he? A political scientist? I can't remember what his job was. But even to what was that? What was that? Before, when the hell did that guy die? It must have been really soon after he released the book in '94. Because I remember having to go through it back in year one. And it's not easy to read, even when you're studying psych. But he said a lot more than just about the black and white study. Like there was, as I mentioned before, the talk about the age, that after a certain age you're no longer going to learn anything. Your cognitive abilities aren't as adaptive. You don't have the capacities as you would. So there's lots of stuff, and it was almost, the political element was just sort of like, you know what, they can give more money to municipal governments or this or that. It's not going to change much. It's not going to do anything. And
Basically saying it's like the brain's like a hard drive. Once you get too much, a certain amount of information, there can't be anything else that can be downloaded.
Well, that's before we learned.
There's also what the part that not just the left, but also the weird right is getting wrong about the whole IQ thing, is where they argue with, but the Africans are so low IQ.
Well,
the problem is when you have an area where even the nutrition is low, and you have your child comes out of mother, bam, child needs nutrition, child is developing, is growing, organs need nutrition to grow, brain needs most energy. If there is not enough food around, what the fuck is the brain supposed to be built from? And you can have a genetic disposition that might give you an IQ of 150. If there is no nutrition to build your brain from, you may never get to 100. And then you have all the other environmental factors. So just the genetic factors, they're relatively irrelevant because nobody reaches their, if there is such a thing, maximum genetic IQ, because you have all these environmental hazards that will impede on that throughout your life, whether that is nutrition, illness, other environmental factors, lack of education, because you need to train that bloody thing. Because if it isn't, your body goes into, oh, let's do energy conservation, because thinking takes up the most energy. So let's not develop that thing beyond where we need it. So this all plays into that. That is the part where nature, where nurture plays onto the nature part. But that's what the right doesn't want to hear. They just want to hear, oh, I have the superior genes. I am awesome. And the left goes, oh, everything nature is racist and Nazi stuff.
Well, yeah.
They're both idiots.
Yeah, when we talk about the left and right in regards to, let's say the right has the opinion, if you just work hard enough, you're going to be able to do anything. And the left is like, well, if we just have enough information, enough training, you can become whatever you want. So there's very similar opinions. And the stats go, no, that is impossible. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how much training you have. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are. It will never happen. And that's
They're both wrong.
That's not like my opinion. That's just the numbers. We don't like. That's why the book was so depressing for everyone. It's like, oh, yeah, geez, this is really bleak. So
yeah, this is why IQ, among other things, among a few other topics, is so heavily researched, and that includes by left-leaning scientists, because they want to disprove this stuff, because they didn't want it to be true. And there's a few other things that they didn't want to be true, like certain sex differences, behaviors between the sexes. They didn't want to be true, so they were researched again and again and again in the hopes that the previous studies were wrong. These are topics where we have the most data on because we don't want it to be true. We don't like the truth, we don't like the reality, but it looks like that's just what it is. So we have to rather deal with the reality as it is and figure out how does that stuff actually work so that we can work with it instead of just live in our fantasy world and wonder why nothing comes to fruition.
Amen, Wisps. By the way, thank you, Hawk, for posting this. You're a better man than I am.
Yeah, it was like on one of the first Google image searches. If you just put Smudboy tweet.
Calling me out stupid now, thanks.
No, it's fine. All I put was Smudboy, we are done here tweet, and it's it's the second image.
Okay, that's fine. You can just call me good from now on. So have you all had a chance to read this tweet then?
There's not much to it, to be honest with you. It's 2 sentences.
I honestly understood it from the first glance.
2 sentences can say a lot. So, how many of you think this is a rhetorical question?
Nope.
It's not a rhetorical question.
Nope. It's not a rhetorical question at all. No.
Okay.
By the way, I understand what a rhetorical question is. This is a rhetorical question because it implies the answer.
So, Wisp, you agree with me? It is a rhetorical question.
That is, if I understand the term rhetorical question correctly, which it is late. It is late here.
No problem. So a rhetorical question is when you ask a question, but everyone knows the answer, or you're like, it's like if you said, so humans humans drink water, or humans breathe oxygen, or elephants are big. Like, yeah, of course, everyone knows the answer to that. This, to me,
there are many. There are.
It's certainly phrased like I would say it's phrased like a rhetorical question.
Elephants.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, so a character's race says nothing about their behavior. Okay, then we're done here.
Classic rhetorical question.
But you can disagree with it, so you can actually answer it.
When we talk about,
I would interpret this as
you can disagree that humans.
We are all talking about. We are all talking about. We are all still talking about characters in media, not people. So what I said before, we have a reduction to stereotypes in part 1 as number 1. Secondly, we have certain with this we can expect certain characters from certain ethnicities to behave a certain way. For example, we see the Mexican maid. She could be so it is reduced to several types. That doesn't mean deterministic one specific type and behavior, but you can have the big motherly maid that is all hysterical, or you can have the big motherly maid that is all super nice, or you can have a Consuela, the sexy Mexican maid. So that's where we can. That's how we reduce this. This is the stereotypes we work with, and this is how I would interpret this rhetorical question.
Well, the assumption is here that if someone agrees, then I have nothing more to talk about. That's what this is implying.
Wait,
so if you say
I'm
yes,
sorry, can you say that one more time?
If someone agrees with the first question, so a character's race says nothing, and if so, okay, we're done.
Oh, so it is a rhetorical question then. And you're just saying, if you agree with me then, if you agree with the rhetorical question, then we're done.
The question is yes or no, right? I don't see it as rhetorical.
If they said no, then you wouldn't be done here.
Drinking water or breathing oxygen, which everyone hopefully knows. Now, now this implies that people believe character's race has nothing to say about their behavior. And I believe there is something to say.
Okay, I think we might be getting caught up in the weeds a little bit. So I just want to be explicitly clear, Smud. Is my original statement, how I summarized this in a more succinct manner...
I don't care how you structure or understand the sentence as rhetorical or not. You could answer it. If you do, great. What's your answer? Yes? If it's yes, I don't care. We're done. If it's no, we could have a conversation.
Then why'd you say, okay, we're done here? Why wouldn't you say, if yes,
because
then we're done here?
We've gone through the
That's what the words mean.
So I'm sorry, I'm so confused here. So this is a rhetorical question, and you think that most people's answer will be yes, and then therefore you say, okay, then we're done here.
Because the person I was referring to, I don't know, had 2 or 3 replies, and they just kept having the same attitude. If they keep having the same attitude, this is their obvious opinion. So there's really no difference. There's really no point in me continuing on. That's it.
Are you confused because there's no if in this tweet?
Well, no, I think we're talking past each other here, to be honest with you. I think the tweet is very clear. It is a rhetorical question which strongly implies that a character's race says something about their behavior.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, if you have in a random movie and there's a German character, what would be your base assumptions about that character?
They're probably going to be a Nazi.
Wow.
Well,
that's
okay.
That's a stereotype. I understand what you're saying.
So the race says something about the behavior of that character.
Well, that's actually nationality, but yeah.
Race. I'm just gonna kind of cut in there.
Well, just this
nationality.
Just because it's a good opportunity. Here in Europe, we don't think in white race. That's a thing that the Americans do and the left wing does. And the Nazis didn't think in white race. They fought in this magical Aryan bullshit.
Okay.
In Europe, we do think in nationalities, but nobody thinks in white race except the red socialists. Mm-hmm. They think about the white race, and they define the white race every week in a different way.
Okay.
Normal people think about the nationality. Sorry if I confused that here for you, but really nobody thinks in the white race outside retarded Americans.
So that's actually very interesting, because somebody asked Smud on Twitter about a race, and he replied talking about Italians, and everybody was clowning on him, which makes perfect sense because he's from a different country where they use race to refer to nationality, what we would consider as Americans to be nationality. So again, just to be clear here, I completely understand why people are clowning on Smud online. It's because people don't understand what he's talking about. He's using very different
because
words.
U.S. Americans mainly know nothing about anywhere else in the world, including the old continent that their ancestors came from.
I think there's just like a language barrier between like Canadians and Americans.
I mean, at the end of the day, you try and say that an English person and a German person are the same race, and
that we are Europeans. Like, that's bullshit.
We don't the Brits don't really class ourselves as Europeans. We class ourselves as the British or the English or Scots or the Welsh. You know, we class ourselves, and we don't see it just as a nationality. We see it as we are from the race of the English, the race of the Scots, and all that sort of stuff.
That's interesting, because I actually saw JXE, who I believe is British, clowning on Smud for that. So maybe there's actually differences between British people. Some people see it as a nationality. Some people see it as a race.
Well, okay. First off, JXE's preferred pronouns.
Jay doesn't believe in using pronouns. Yeah.
Well, hold on. As someone who lives in the UK, I'll easily explain it away. The reason that Jay will obviously think of it as a nationality is due to, especially since the turn of the 21st century, there's been a diluting of the idea of an English race, especially in the school systems, to be put more of the British national. So I can understand why Jay would say that it's more of a race, because education has been very Americanized in the UK.
Yeah, the European Union has been driving this into the schools in every nation and in media in every nation in Europe, basically trying to tell us. Well, they don't have much of a hold there, but basically trying to tell us that they're telling this to every nation, that this nation does not have a culture, that all the culture it has is just taken from neighboring countries, because everyone else has a culture, but not you yourself. They're even telling that to the Finnish, where they are telling with state-sponsored advertisements on TV with an obese blue-haired feminist and an African black man, that the Finnish are profited from colonization and slavery, and that black people built everything. And this is so hilarious, because the Finnish had been slaves. They never had colonies. They were enslaved by the Swedish and by the Russians and by the Swedish and by the Russians, back and forth, and used as cannon fodder against the other. And now they're being told that they have no culture and that they exploited the Africans. Like, wonderful. This is the propaganda we live with here in Europe, made by the European Union, that wants to build this European identity bullshit, which is the exact same kind of mechanics that the Soviet Union tried with establishing the Soviet identity, and trying to do away with all the subcultures and ethnicities. They're trying to make everything the same, and thereby trying to tell us, we're all Europeans. Like, dude, in Europe, everybody hates everyone, including within the countries. So, yes, everybody hates the French, but the Northern French hate the Southern French, and the Northern Southern French hate the Parisians.
Yeah, Parisians don't class themselves as French. They class themselves as a completely different race of people, the French. You've got the people who live in Normandy who don't class themselves as French. They class themselves as Normans, because they see themselves as a different race.
We have people in Egypt called the Bedouins. They're different. We consider them different race.
It's why there's been so many genocides in Europe throughout the millennia, because everybody is, even though everyone looks.
Today we're just making jokes with each other and go drinking.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what we mean. But the thing is, like, to point to your thing, people are clowning on Smud for something that, once you head off outside and aren't like under the age of 25, is a very common knowledge thing.
How old do you think the people on Twitter are?
How old do I think the people on Twitter are? Well, considering the fact that I know half the accounts that are clowning on Smud, I know how old they are.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes perfect sense because, again, just to clarify, I saw Smud's tweet because somebody said something about race, and Smud replied talking about Italians, and that sounds bonkers to me, and it sounds bonkers to 95% of the other people on the platform. So this makes perfect sense now that we just have different cultural experiences which are influencing this.
Well,
Yeah,
the thing with the Italians, you have to remember that, like I say, Italy wasn't even a country until the 19th century in Europe. It was numerous city-states that classed each other as different from each other.
Similar to Greece.
Similar to Greece. There's so many different cultures and races in Europe throughout the millennia that have existed. That, you know, the problem is when the Americans look at it, they just think that everything is like America, where it was like all the white people liked each other. Well, in reality, when America was first set up, even the whites didn't like each other. The Irish got screwed over by the Scots. You know, the English, you know, that's why you have, like, what is it, the WASPs, the white Anglo-Saxon.
People hated the Jews as well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's only because of them literally being trapped on a continent for 200 years and mixing and matching that they've got the ideas that they have now. While in Europe, to be honest with you, we didn't really mix and match that much. We just
this American project sort of worked because everyone just brought bits and pieces. But even then, if you look at the cultures between the different states in the United States, you have distinct remnants of Germanic culture, remnants of British culture in other pockets. Like I think it's the difference between Boston and Massachusetts for the most part, those areas. And then you have all these other weird things. And in Europe, we still have all the originals. That's why we still sit in our villages and do our village festivals that are 5 to 6 to 7 times as old as the United States. And it just works. And everywhere you have a different, you have your different family recipes or according to the well, I don't want to say tribes, but it's kind of what it grew out of.
Yeah. That's
All right, guys.
I'm failing at words
so
here.
much for the European history lesson, but I'd like to actually get on the other topic, which is the adaptation of...
I'm so sorry. Can I ask you a real quick question? I swear this will be the last thing.
One more.
I'm sorry.
Only if the rest of the panel shuts the hell up. How's that? Okay.
Okay. Everyone quiet. This. I swear I'll be quick.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Yeah, shut up, boys.
I've broken down this sentence as much as I possibly can, or the two sentences. Clearly, we disagree that it's rhetorical. That's fine. I just want a clear answer. If you did a tweet that could be reasonably classified as racist on a public platform, would you want to rectify that?
If I said something which was racist, yes.
Okay. That's all I'll say, and I would just ask you to possibly look at this tweet and think about how most people will probably read it.
Don't care. Thank you. Okay. Next topic.
Okay. Okay. I could add one last thing to that.
No, I said no, Wisp. Come on.
Wisp is going to kill you.
Wisp. What did we agree on?
So I have friends from Sudan.
I didn't agree on anything.
Wow.
I love democracy.
You signed the terms of conditions. What are you talking about?
Jesus.
This is democracy. We do whatever we want.
Anyway.
I was blindly accepting your thoughts as my own.
Hopefully we can talk about...
Also, you said hello in communist language, so... I was
already offended. I felt like I wanted...
You lost your rights, Wisp. It's over.
Send him to the penal colony somewhere.
Australia?
Good enough. Thank you. Okay, anyway.
Austria.
Yeah, anyway, adaptations.
Yay.
That wonderful, wonderful word.
Yeah.
Adaptation.
The word A is like aardvark, in that it has an A in it.
Thank you.
Where there's a D.
That's great.
I'm trying to break the mood. Come on, just light some candles, play some romantic music. Get us really all up and ready for it.
This just a little piece of paper. You can't do that with me. Well, regarding adaptation, I actually have another tweet, which was very interestingly worded as well. I'm actually curious, Smudboy, do you mind saying where you're from? Because again, it seems like this is cultural difference.
I'm from Toronto, and I grew up, as you know, in Toronto since it's multicultural. So I have dated many women, I've met many friends, all of various backgrounds and ethnicities and cultures and foods. So
okay, so
He's
again,
Canadian,
this comes down to how you use words, because this is why you're getting dunked on. Just to be clear.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think it's a cultural
Just
thing.
one
I think
thing,
it's an
please.
ideological thing.
If we had the deal that that would be the last question about Twitter, can we just move on to the next topic?
Well, this is about.
Let's just talk about adaptations, please. Like,
oh, no, this is about this is about adaptation, though. I'm curious to know Smud's idea on it.
Okay.
If you're willing to hear it.
An adaptation goes from one medium to another, and we talk about spiritual successors, or when you don't have the rights to
or soft reboots.
Like whatever. Like if you're using the same name, then you already have within the public eye this body of lore that you have to then respect. And if it's going to be altered, you either have to add to it, remove it, or
has to be just as good or better.
Well, yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. It depends, because when you shift to a medium, obviously you can't have 100% conversion. You have to do something to respect. So when we talk about Faye Valentine's jacket, it's like, hey, it's the same color. Good for you. Why is her skirt not the same color? Why is she using different colored nylons? Why, all these other variable aspects that we can't quite figure out because it's kind of dark and we're not sure about the color scheme. And the arguments were the material's not tough enough, and it's made of tissue paper. And you're like, what is going on here? So there's a lot of things that from that tweet from Daniela, what's her name? The actress. Pineda, yeah, who does this, was not being accurate. She was trying to be funny, which is not probably the best response given you're bitching about people complaining about appearances. When she's saying Faye is not 6 foot nothing, and I'm like, Faye is 5'4", you're 5'5" or 5'6". So odd thing to say, just to get it off your chest. As you're being stressed, obviously you're an actress and you're busy, which is fine. But compare that to the interview with John Cho and Watanabe from last year, and they're like, positive, mostly positive. It's like, this is, good. That's what you want to hear. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, I'm curious. So you think it's okay to make changes on an adaptation when those changes are an improvement, correct?
I don't know what could be an improvement, but when we're talking about, let's say, Batman's cowl, so remember 1989, the iconic look of that Batman was was it polyurethane? I don't know what the material was, and
leather.
It was a plastic. It was definitely a plastic. And he couldn't move his neck.
Like how he rips it off, like in the Batman Returns.
Oh, yes, right. That's a great example. Yeah, because when we get to the Nolan trilogy, one of those factors is, well, why can't Batman move his neck? Because, I'm sure they consulted with the rest of the other guys that made the other movies.
It was like that for Batman Begins, but they fixed it for the later two movies.
Well, that's kind of the point, is that they addressed the concerns of the adaptation of how would we realistically do this, and that is its own self a little... not really a plot point, but a comment on how this would be realistic in a modern day setting or whatever setting they were in at the time. So stuff like that is great because there's enough explanation why that change happens.
So I'm not completely familiar with Cowboy Bebop. Is the character of Faye Valentine, is she like an actiony character? Does she run around and shoot people and whatnot?
She has a few fight scenes. She's mostly sultry. She has about 4 modes. She's sultry. She's angry, she's bored, and there's flashbacks where she cries, it gets emotional here and there, but she's not too physical.
Okay, well, I just like putting this out to you. If I'm doing an adaptation, a live-action adaptation, I've never seen the show, I noticed that she wears high heels, which are very impractical shoes. So if I was doing an adaptation...
kind of like how in Jurassic World.
Are you familiar with the noir genre?
A little bit, yeah. I've seen Chinatown.
Okay. Then you are probably also familiar with the femme fatale.
Yes.
Yes, that is what Faye is. And her stupid red leather jacket that she wears in this impractical way is resembling a stola that she's wearing. That stola is impractical by design. This is just the adaptation from the noir genre into this weird sci-fi setting. This is you could say a homage to that. Faye is a primarily sexual character that has a few action scenes, but not primarily action scenes. She's not an action hero.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, would you say that her outfit, it being kind of sultry, and I guess slutty is a negative word, but it's certainly very flamboyant, that's an extension of her mental and moral attributes, in the sense that she wants people to be sexually attracted to her, so she dresses like that.
She uses her looks to manipulate people. That is part of her.
Kind of
Like
like Black Widow.
Yeah.
Again, I'm so sorry to go back to Twitter, but there's so many people online who are just saying, come on, why can't she be the same? Why can't she be the same? Your argument you just gave me, Wisp, is really good. It's like, this is part of her character. If you're going to adapt her mental and moral attributes, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the most important part about an individual and a piece of media, yeah, that outfit reflects her mental and moral attributes.
It's why she was designed like that in the first place. And this is the main difference between adapting a book into a visual medium and adapting an already visual medium into another visual medium. We have, when you do it from a book, you have rough descriptions that leave room for interpretation. Mm-hmm. And in this is why when we do one Dune movie and then another Dune movie and then another Dune movie from different people, the characters can look slightly different because we're basing it on a book. In the case of an anime that we make a live action from, we have a very specific design already established as that design, or when we take it from a manga. And to really diverge from that, you have to have very good reason. And the reasons they gave for the Netflix live action adaptation for Faye, as well as for the other characters, doesn't make much sense. And the same people who defend these changes here are the people who want and or defend blackwashing characters, but make a fuss when something else happens. However, nobody complained here that Faye is the original character is from Singapore. None of these people who give so much, this is the odd thing about the left, where they care about race all of a sudden, they do not make a fuss about the actress not being Singaporean, or however you pronounce that. While Spike, and the left claims to be, you will notice this topic in a bit, Spike is suddenly played by an Asian man, I think Korean. And Spike Spiegel, or Spiegel, as you would originally pronounce it, is a Jew, or has a Jewish background. That's where the name Spiegel comes from. It means mirror. And that dates back to a merchant family of household goods. Spike also has the frizzled hair, has a bit longer face. It all fits. Even I'm not familiar with guns too much. So someone told me that even his gun is a reference to his Jewish ancestry.
It's an Israeli gun.
Oh wow! And when you look at cosplayers who play Spike, the Jews who play Spike pull it off the best because they have all the natural attributes, and you think, yeah, that looks like him. Why didn't they cast a Jew to play Spike?
Because then you'd be labeled a racist for even mentioning he might be Jewish.
Oh well, or at least something who looks closer to him.
Well, not a 47-year-old man at the time, and Spike is 27.
It's because I would expect the left that goes so much on about we need to protect the Jews, to complain that why didn't they cast a Jew for the character? That is anti-Semitic.
Yeah,
That's what I would have expected, but that didn't happen. Everybody just jumps to defending the bad costume of the Brie Larson personality actor, because that's a horrible narcissistic person. First, really bad adaptation of the costume. It barely resembles Faye. And so I already dismissed her based on that. I didn't even go further into her looks, because I only saw this shot of the trio that we saw. But Smut didn't bring up the boobs. Jay put the boobs into Smut's mouth, which is maybe a bit ill-phrased.
Thank you.
But and Anna, that Star Wars girl, she also went through some stuff, and where we see some bikini or sports bra footage of the actress, where you can see she has a square frame. That is okay for if she wants to play a female action hero, where the muscles all work fine. But Faye is not the muscly type. She is the curvy femme fatale. So if you wanted to go into that argument that she has the wrong body type, we didn't even get there. We complained about the costume being bad.
Well, this is very interesting, because these are all arguments I haven't heard before. And again, so much better than the arguments on Twitter, because people on Twitter are stupid. Here's the thing, Wisp. I understand completely why you're upset that if her character, Faye's character, is that she's sultry and she uses her looks to manipulate people. Completely understand why you'd be upset that they're not using a sultry outfit to accommodate that. However, what if they change Faye's character? What if they change her character to accommodate her new look?
I just sent you some.
Then that is an even worse adaptation. Then it's not even an adaptation anymore. Then it's something different. Because then we get into the territory of shows like Lucifer, which is a complete shit on the comic Lucifer, which plays in the Sandman universe, and which just took names of places and characters from the comic and made its own weird, bad soap opera crap out of it. That has absolutely nothing to do with the comic. Like, the character of Lucifer is completely different from the one in the comic. I watched and thought, yeah, if you wanted to make that, I might have watched it if it was not pretending to be Lucifer, that from the comic. If it was its own thing, I might be able to enjoy it. But you claim to be the thing, what comic I hold very dear, an adaptation of that, and you're just ripping off the brand. Why are you, when you make an adaptation, why are you making the changes? The thing is, when you make an anime adaptation, you have fans. That's your core audience. That is your target audience. Everything else is a bonus. Your target audience will be pissed if you fuck these things up. You change the characters for no reason. You change the looks for no reason. Oh, well, when your reason is just some ideological possession, same thing. It's if Christians did an adaptation of Cowboy Bebop and covered up Faye, would you complain then? Or would you just take it because, oh, well, we shouldn't show too much ankle? Like, that's just as stupid. It's just as stupid as the feminist argument of, oh, she shouldn't show so much cleavage. She's a femme fatale, for fuck's sake.
Well,
let's change her character. Like, then it's not Cowboy Bebop.
Calm down. All right, we get the message.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like this. It's pretty much like, put it this way. It's like the food analogy. You're a famous burger place. You have a really good burger. It's tasty as hell. You go one day, the same brand that says, hey, we got that burger. You go in, you order that burger, but they give you pie instead. Now, the pie can be good, because that's usually the argument of EFAP, like, adaptation doesn't really matter if the story is good. I slightly disagree, and I'll explain now. The pie may be good, but the person never ordered pie. And while that can be, say that can be very subjective, what's your main goal when you create an art? Where your main goal is to attract as many people as possible and get many people to, experience that art, watch it, buy it, whatever. If you lie to them and tell them, oh, we have this art and we're totally honoring the fans and yada yada yada, and then it turns out that's a load of bullshit. You're not giving me burger, you're giving me pie. You're gonna lose a lot of people. A lot of people will not be interested, and they'll have good reason because you're lying to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Tadros. And just to expand on what you said, I think what you're poking at is I think it's very important to distinguish two things, the art and the marketing. Because if, with all the trailers and all the posters they've been marketing a Cowboy Bebop with, when they release it on Netflix, they release the film Pulp Fiction, you guys and everybody who's been marketed this would have every right to be like, what the heck? You lied to us. You said it was this thing, and then you gave us something completely different. You'd probably even be able to sue them for libel. However, the movie, Pulp Fiction's a pretty good movie. I'm just going to say it. So I think that's absolutely what you're saying, is that it does not affect the quality of the end product. It affects how you perceive the morality of the people who market it.
Yeah,
Who make it.
That's pretty much who make it and market it, like both of them. Because
from Netflix we already know that we are not getting the Pulp Fiction instead of Cowboy Bebop. We're just getting some thing shat on the table.
Well, I guess we'll see, right?
No,
We know it's.
this has happened over and over already. We can make an assumption. We can make a pretty good assumption that this will also be crap.
Yeah, possibly. The problem with the Cowboy Bebop thing is that it's far less extreme than Pulp Fiction, because it seems like they're being honest with you guys in the trailers. They're showing you some of the differences. It's like, hey, it's got.
And that tells me that's not Cowboy Bebop. I don't want to watch it. Why would I want to waste my time with that?
Well, what if it maintains like the core elements of Cowboy Bebop, though?
It doesn't. It changed Faye.
But Faye could be the same
it's
character.
not promising. It's not.
She can't be
Okay.
like we just discussed this.
The
like,
thing is-
great length. Like she can't be the femme fatale because like of her
She
visuals.
absolutely can. She
She
absolutely.
looks like a complete. She looks like a random strong woman covered up.
That's
Basically,
no.
it's the same
that
generic
girl-
strong woman we've been seeing over and over again everywhere.
Okay, so just to be clear, that girl could absolutely use her looks to seduce many guys and women.
But just
maybe
because
not,
of her face, it doesn't work like that. Femme fatale works with more than just her face.
probably her personality.
That's
right?
why it's fatale.
Okay, can I? All right. So you could, again, in theory, you could maybe inside the movie. Hopefully, I didn't watch Cowboy Bebop or much of it, but in theory, you can have Faye maybe later in the movie or in the movie itself being a femme fatale. Maybe this is one scene where she's like that. That could be theoretically true. I highly doubt it, since it's a Netflix adaptation, and I would say that's a really bad marketing strategy.
Sure.
That you like portray Faye like this towards the fans, where the fans are going to be like, wait, that's not Faye. Who's this?
Well, I'm curious, Tadros.
The way Faye has a strong character moments is different than from what the woman displayed in the picture I expect to have strong character moments from. Or weak character moments.
But guys, let's say that you watch the show, right? And it's probably going to suck. You're right. Netflix is very questionable. However, you watch this show, and you see that this lady who's called Faye, who is maybe a little stocky, maybe not all that attractive, although she's kind of cute. All of a sudden, there's this scene where she puts on her charm, and she's incredibly flirtatious, and she's really cool and sexy, and just like Faye from the adaptation. What would you guys say to that?
I don't give a shit because that's not in the rest of the whole thing. Because
let's say it is.
She puts that on. Look. She puts that on as an act because that whole shtick doesn't work with the crew. There, she's just a normal woman, but she keeps on her clothing style. She keeps on her whole behavior, which is a bit narcissistic, and this would need to be reflected here in everything. It needs to be Faye being a femme fatale is not an act she puts on for a moment. Yes, she's manipulative for the moment, but overall, she's an emotional character. not the strong action woman. It's not who she is, but that's what I get from the image. And if you write her different, why should I fucking care if you give me this little breadcrumb? I went through enough narcissistic abuse in my life that I know breadcrumbs are crap. That all this gaslighting, that all this and emotional extortion, that this whole ad campaign and the actress complaining this is all essentially falls into psychological abuse. What these people are doing, they're trying to bully us into liking it and watching it. Something that we already know you don't even care making. Maybe it's even just money laundering in the worst of cases. Because I don't understand why you would go to the effort of getting the license, then making the stuff. You have millions of dollars of budget. You could get people who look good enough. Maybe you can even recruit some from the cosplay scene. Japan does that sometimes. And give them some acting training, which is something that Smart implied in a tweet of his. And some are already quite okay actors, and there's a lot of actors that are pushed into movies that are really bad actors.
Well, that lends itself to the credence of Cowboy Bebop as a show. If you notice, not a lot is spoken in dialogue, or there's not enough dialogue in general.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of profound silences where not much happens.
Yeah, you need, and for that, to fill that out, you need really good acting.
Well, I would say that's part of it, but because these like Faye is how she sits, how she walks, how she talks to people. The same with Spike. That's part of acting.
Very feminine.
Well. Yes, but there's a lot of silence, and that silence is either filled in with action scenes or music of somberness or melancholy. And I would argue that noise, that music, is what conveys all these ideas without speaking. So the need for all this dialogue. That's why I always gave the example of Lady Macbeth. This is not hiring someone to play Shakespeare or whatever drama queen, whatever. It's just a person to look good and to act, not vocally, but to act well in the mode of seductress, in the mode of someone who is really sweet and sexy, but if you turn around, she'll blow your kneecaps off and get what she wants out of you. So, or, steal some money or beat you at cards, whatever the case may be. So that is part of Faye's demeanor. And it honestly, you just need someone who looks like them. The rest of the acting and the acclimatization to the character can be done just by watching the show and being a girl who knows what's pretty and sexy and powerful. And that's, Juilliard could teach you that. It's not that hard, though.
Yeah, you have to, and you have to like that to a degree. If you have an actress who already doesn't like that and is insecure about her body, she'll have problems pulling that off. I'm pretty sure. And which is what's coming through. And I have to rephrase a bit what I said before. What I meant to say is that more people than are in acting are able to learn how to act well. So you can't just give them a little, because they were just not that interested in it. But with a little bit of guidance, people can pull off some pretty amazing things. Yeah, and that's part of when a director helps you and just says, hey, move those eyes a bit different.
Yeah, it's
and suddenly you get a perfect scene out of something that was dull for 5 takes.
It's very much, I would say, with Faye, is more of an attitude. And I spoke to my photographer buddy who he would hire models, and how it works is there's multiple photographers doing shoots at the same time with other models. And there's the gorgeous women who don't have any acting ability because they're just gorgeous and they look good, but they don't know how to pose. They don't know how to have an attitude. Then there's the not as attractive women who know how to act, and they can do multiple poses with multiple perspectives that they end up getting the contracts more often because they can work the camera. And this is just posing. This is just sitting there with certain expressions, certain body poses, certain clothing. That's it. And that is what that's what you need to get from the acting element, not the dialogue. Not can she command a powerful voice from across the stage? No, nothing like that.
Oh, Smud, that's what you meant in that tweet when you said acting is optional. Dadgummit, Smud. You need to give me your Twitter feed. Just give
Okay,
it over
you know
to
what?
me, and I'll make this
you,
all better.
If you've never gone to the stage, if you've never gone to the stage, if you've never seen a play, that's not my problem. If you don't know what acting is, that's not my problem. Okay?
Well, I've seen movies. There's acting in those.
Yeah, but they have microphones.
So?
And I'm assuming they have microphones in the show as well. But it's not just how you talk and how you walk. With Bebop, it's a piece of artwork, I would like to say, in some cases. There are still scenes you just look at that and you're like, that's beautiful. The scene in episode 5 where Spike is falling out of the cathedral and everything slows down and you're like, oh, and the music starts playing like a music box and there's a hymn in the background. I was like, what's going? This is special, and it's just a guy falling out of a stained glass window, which is kind of poetic in its own way.
That's pretty much my favorite scene from the show. That was just so well done. Yeah, aspect.
That doesn't involve so much acting as the visual of a man falling down and looking at his past as he's falling. I don't know how the hell Spike survived a grenade explosion and falling 2 stories, but stories. That's how it goes.
And oh no, I lost the thought.
Well, I mean, okay, as long as you guys agree that you're separating out the marketing from the actual finished product in the art, that's fine. I mean, because I mean, it could be that Cowboy Bebop, the Netflix adaptation, it probably won't, but it could be that it's phenomenal. It's nothing like the show, but it's
No,
phenomenal.
I don't expect to win in the lottery when I have lost 50 times in the lottery.
Whisk, I'm just saying.
Okay,
if it
okay.
is,
And I hate
agree,
this is so. Yes, there is a minute 0.0000 something chance. Okay, I do not dismiss that. But I am not running on that idiotic level of hope to delude myself and drug myself into believing that Netflix might do something good.
Well, it's not
Because
just
Netflix
fame.
obviously doesn't seem to care. Netflix is going agenda. Netflix is going to give us something on the CW level with a little bit better special effects.
Yeah.
I think we all agree that Netflix's shows like 99% is going to be bad. I think we all agree on that.
I mean, we got the Transformers Cybertron trilogy of that He-Man Revelation show.
Exactly. But like regarding adaptation itself, CinemaSins, I agree. Like, sure, marketing, it's a terrible idea. But
it's also bad marketing to let your narcissistic diva of an actress insult the future audience.
I actually thought that was kind of funny.
Oh yeah, very funny. Oh, it's not made for you. Yeah, okay, then I'm not gonna watch it. Go fuck yourself.
We're
having so bad ratings. The audience is all just misogynist. Go fuck yourself.
Did she say that they were misogynist?
I'm being hyperbolic here because that is the general thing we get with video games.
Well,
that is just the general pattern we get.
Daniela was being passive aggressive very much in her.
Oh yeah, she was clearly pissed. I loved it.
Pissed? She's insecure.
But the point is, like, have you guys watched Suicide Squad, the new one?
No.
Yes.
All right. I'm not gonna delve into any spoiler, but I'm gonna say like one of the characters, King Shark, he's not like the comics at all. The comics King Shark is much different than the movie.
Yeah, he's like a Flash villain.
Yeah, he's a Flash villain, but in the Suicide Squad, I'd argue he's a really good character, and I really enjoyed him.
And me too.
And
he's one of the best characters in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree. We agree that yes, you can definitely, even when you adapt something and even sometimes change something significantly, that's at certain times. Not all of them. Like I said, marketing isn't in terms of marketing. You can make an objectively great story, character, etc.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they Mr. Freeze in Batman the Animated Series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but the difference is King Shark's still a shark thing.
Yeah.
There are certain things where it's a bit like as good as the character could be, if King Shark was actually an octopus man instead of King Shark, could say this is not what a shark looks like. This is not what King Shark looks
if that's the case, then then we're just gonna ask in the movie, why the fuck is he called King Shark? Like that would be the question then.
Alternatively, if we had, for some reason, purely hypothetical, we would have a live-action Jessica Rabbit, and she'd be played by a woman with a square torso, A-cups, and black hair, with rather conservative clothing. Would you buy that is Jessica Rabbit?
I mean, it would depend on how she behaved, right?
Are you fucking kidding me?
No,
seriously.
no.
I think the mental.
Are you seriously fucking kidding me?
No. Listen, I think the mental and moral attributes of an individual are far more important than how they look. Genuinely.
Do you understand how human sexuality works?
Yeah, I mean, Luke's or stuff. Like in Black Widow, like in Avengers, like her, like being in like the femme fatale wouldn't be convincing if she were played by, I don't know, Brie Larson. So that's not very attractive.
I think she can make that very convincing. I'm serious. I think your behavior can be incredibly important in terms of your sexuality. Like genuinely, some of the girls I've been most attracted to are like 4 out of 10s, and I love their personality, and I get turned on, unironically.
Okay, wonderful. That's your personal thing. That's not the grand average of humanity.
Cinema
and it doesn't matter. The whole thing with a femme fatale is that her true personality is not even relevant for her being a femme fatale. The femme fatale can be an act, but she needs the looks to be the femme fatale.
She needs the looks?
To be a femme fatale, yes.
It would harm her character, let's just say that.
It's hard to pull off being a femme fatale.
It wouldn't be consistent
otherwise.
with her character. It won't really be consistent with her character.
How
Just
is
wouldn't
it
be very convincing for us, the audience.
Well, I mean, that's entirely subjective, right? But what I'm arguing here is when I look at character, I'm thinking of the mental and moral attributes. And there's no contradiction with an ugly girl being very sultry and smooth and confident and actually attracting some, attention.
That's a completely different topic, but she would not make the same she would not have the same success as a femme fatale with the looks.
Probably not.
Okay, so
that's the point.
Here's the thing: there's something called visual storytelling. Like,
sorry for getting loud.
You're
fine.
Something called visual storytelling.
No, so my problem is that I'm sorry. Go on.
I think we all know Ashley Williams from Mass Effect 1. You see her she's a gun-ho, she's a soldier, she has this braid. She's not like, oh, I'm here to look hot. Look at Mass Effect 3, Ashley Williams is wearing what pretty much is a dress and has a lot of makeup. And it's like, okay, you could say, oh, that doesn't necessarily harm Ashley by a lot. I'd say, okay, it doesn't completely ruin her necessarily, but it does definitely harm her, at least, to a certain extent.
You're saying her character wouldn't wear those things?
Like
as Ashley, wouldn't wear a dress in a war. In a war.
Comically, she actually makes that joke in the first game that you'll never catch me dead in what was it, tinfoil or whatever.
And, in a skirt or something.
She took me out to dinner first. Yeah, it's like, oh, you're now wearing a skirt and your hair is long and you're wearing makeup.
They don't even make a joke about that in 3.
Yeah, so you could theoretically have Ashley being a great character in Mass Effect 3, and I'd still say okay, her visual representation is a bit inconsistent with who she is.
So Tadros, I completely agree with you. I've never played Mass Effect, but if what you're saying is true, it seems to be, though, that what you're highlighting is a contradiction between behavior and what they say and what they say and behavior, which actually could be perfectly fine depending on the character. But my point is, with the Jessica Rabbit example, there's no contradiction like what you're highlighting with an ugly girl being sultry. There's none. Like, plenty of girls behave that way.
Yeah, but she's not gonna be a femme fatale.
So,
think what
Wisps,
I mean-
sorry, when you say that, I'm assuming
You're
mean-
trying to me that an ugly girl is as sexy as a sex bomb.
I don't think he means that. I think he means as in even if she's
A
ugly,
femme
she'd
fatale is a
still
sex
try.
bomb. You're trying to tell me that an ugly girl can be as much of a sex bomb as a sex bomb.
Wisps, we're talking right past each other here. All I'm saying is that there's no contradiction with an ugly girl behaving that way. What you're referring to is that...
That wasn't even the point.
Well, that
We
was my
weren't talking
point.
about an ugly girl behaving that way. We were talking about femme fatale looks.
Okay, so just...
Because that's the first point you see about a femme fatale. Because
Okay,
before you see how she behaves, you see her looks. It is all about the looks.
Let's be explicitly clear.
Cinema. Okay,
It's
sorry.
not about personality first. That's the whole point of this kind of character.
Cinema. Yeah, go on cinema. Or what do you want to say?
Yeah. So I think what Wisp is getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the idea that if this kind of ugly girl was going around and being sultry, and like every single guy or girl she approached immediately fell in love with her, it would probably be a little unbelievable for a lot of people and thus harm their immersion. That's not what I'm talking about, because as I was saying, I'm really
You're conflating
focused
real life
here
with
on the
movie
mental
making.
and moral aspects. Oh, so you agree with me then that an ugly girl could get all these guys then?
Wait, what?
I've seen
Wait,
it a thousand
wait.
times, and it's usually when they are that sex crazed, it's usually that they get the worst guys possible that are easy to manipulate because they don't have the confidence to speak up to girls.
So
That's what I've seen most of the time. It doesn't mean everyone's like that. There's always exceptions, but that's what I've seen most of the time.
So
Go ahead,
I
Tedros.
just want to say something. I would say if what's her name again? Jessica Rabbit.
Rabbits.
Rabbit.
Rabbit.
Okay. Rabbits. Yeah, I would say like if Jessica is a femme fatale and she's supposed to try to attract men, and she looks ugly as hell, I'd say why isn't she trying to make herself more attractive? Why isn't she attempting to, like say
That
do
might be a
any-
good point.
makeup or
Yeah.
anything. So same thing with Faye. Faye is a femme fatale on Netflix. Let's say Faye is a femme fatale somehow with this clothing. I would still ask, like, why isn't Faye trying to make herself look attractive?
That's a really
Or-
good argument. You're highlighting a logical inconsistency with the character where they have this desire.
Yeah, that's my point.
And they have like a path to improve that desire and get what they want, and they just don't do it.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Great
saying like
point.
visual characterization. That's why I'm saying visual characterization does have an effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay then.
I think we still talked past each other there for a while, but we'll get to the end of it at some point.
I think we managed to find some like common ground, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. Smud. Okay. I swear, this is the last thing I'm ever going to say. So, Sophistic Autistic was talking to you, and you said that 1989 Batman shares the same continuity as Batman Begins. Can you expand on that?
I'm sorry,
Not
what?
either.
So you're saying... Oh,
So
you mean,
you
you
were
mean
talking-
in terms of being an adaptation?
You use the word continuity is a thing.
Okay, so there's two main disambiguations, which is one is a setting. So we're talking about the setting of a series or a book or whatever. Everything within that is its own continuity, and the concept of continuity from another piece of work. So it uses the title of Batman. So the problem with Batman is you're saying, okay, I'm going to use Batman to make 1989 or Nolan or whatever. There's so much lore around Batman.
Mhm.
There's so many versions and iterations, and then we're talking about even the writers of those iterations are either stepping over themselves or reinventing Batman. Then there's alternate universes of Batman. There's Elseworld comics. And then we have the animated version. So we have all this Batman to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's still Batman. So the logical idea is that it's just the same idea of a writer taking Batman from the comics to make another comic. Does that then say he's going to take Batman from the comics to make a movie or to make an animated series? So something has to translate over, or else it wouldn't be called Batman. It wouldn't be Batman in a cat suit who calls himself Batman. That would be wrong. So you have to bring over this stuff which must be translated unless there's a purpose not to do it. For example, the animated series Batman Beyond. That's a telling of the future world of Batman that we don't really get too often, aside from Kingdom Come or other comics. So some of that stuff can be largely forgotten so long as the basis is the same. You can't suddenly say, oh, Batman's mom never died, and she's still living with Bruce, and she's like 120 because, you know, medical advances in the future are better or whatever. You could do that, but you're going to lose a lot of your audience because we're talking about Batman, the biggest, most popular character I can think of in the history of stories, at least the present moment. So you have to bring stuff over. And if you don't...
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
can
go.
I just... I just want to point out about the Batman part. Like, there is a animated cartoon and a comic book, I think, called Flashpoint Paradox, where an alternate timeline just got created because the Flash went to save his mother, and, you know, Batman became, instead of Bruce, it's Thomas Wayne, and he uses guns and kills people.
Yes. There's lots
that's
of...
basically just a what. That's kind of just more or less just a what if.
Well, that's what I mean by...
Yeah.
You could... Like, that's what we've been doing with Elseworlds in the DC universe, what ifs and Marvels. Writers can do their own shtick, their own spiel. There was that Legends of the Dark Knight on the animated series. They had 3 different versions. The second one was the first one was Frank Miller. The second one was the original that animated version of the intro to the real live action Batman. It's that style. There's no specific comic book it came from, just the style of art that they borrowed. And even at the end where it's like there's a handshake of a good job, old chum, you know, that sort of silly Adam West sort of feeling. So they adapted that into an animated series with not much lore to work with, but, you know, people understood that because there wasn't much to begin with. So if you borrow a style or a technique, you better know darn well how that works, because all you're going to be doing is reinventing stuff. And I remember the trailer for what is it, the Batman? It's coming out next year, I think. There's not much for us to work with, aside from the violence, the more realistic attitudes, some of the noir color schemes and elements, and I think the best thing was the eyeliner or the eyeshadow, whatever you want to call that. It's like, hey, finally, they have a Batman with eyeliner or eyeshadow that we can see on screen. So there's some realistic elements there that they are obviously doing that no one else has done before, and it makes sense visually. So you can get away with some stuff. But the way he enters the room, that's really caught my eye, even though it's just the feet. I'm like, that's not Batman. So maybe it's in his younger years. It's like, okay, you can get away with that because he doesn't know any better. He's a young man or a younger man.
Like basically more like Batman is rookie years.
Something along like
basically
year one.
Like,
year one.
Yeah, kind of like something like Batman Arkham Origins, whereas a younger, more experienced Batman who, like, learns something. Yeah,
so there's so much to work with, and there's so much freedom that Batman has been given. So, you know, they probably are doing things that people have already done 30, 40 years ago in one of the 7 comic books of Batman that we just don't even know because there's just so much lore that at that point it's so ubiquitous. It's so, I wouldn't say homogenized, because obviously there's like Man-Bat and all these future versions, and there's the Nightfall saga and all these other crazy stories of Batman being cybernetic and stuff. So it's just so ubiquitous that you have some freedoms. At the same time, if you don't have Batman lose his family at the start, you're going to piss a lot of people off. If you don't have Batman, go away and travel to become Batman, you're going to piss a lot of people off. So there's like basic stuff, and that's what we saw with the Snyderverse, where he just took Frank Miller and just did whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah.
A lot of people went
basically more kind of like a flanderized version of that Batman.
Right. The argument would be like, well, in '89, Batman killed people. He had guns on his car. It's like, yeah, but that was done in comedic levels, always off to the side. It was
And
never.
at least in that version, he didn't try to he doesn't go out of his way to kill, but it's just more kind of indirectly sometimes.
It still takes away from the mystique and the idea of what makes Batman unique these days, or the popularized version that we have all attached ourselves to, which is the man who doesn't kill. He's so good, he could plan things out and get around that. So, but Tim Burton has his own style, so it's like, okay, fine, he's going to go.
I mean, that was back when Batman was when Batman first started to boom. People didn't have this idealized version back then, as we kind of do now.
Yeah, and that's where we get into characterization of what are these elements that we can play with that you can actually get away with that are contrary. And looking at Faye and looking at all these other characters, is like we don't know enough. So that's why I'm still on the fence, because a lot of it doesn't look good, but maybe there's something there even with the Batman, because it's all visual. We don't know yet what we're going to get. But as soon as we see a big contradiction, like, oh, Batman kills now, oh boy, you're going to have to explain that. You are going to have to tell the audience why, and you have a flashback or something, because then it's no longer Bruce Wayne, it's someone else.
But yeah, because the DCU Batman, they don't really put in work and explain. They're like, oh, Robin died, and they just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But he hasn't killed the Joker for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's things we can do to get around that, but I don't think
I haven't seen the Snyder cut of Justice League yet. I know you have, because Voice of Radio.
Yeah.
Did they explain why he hasn't killed Joker yet?
No. That was completely not even part of the story.
Because they don't explain that in Suicide Squad.
Yeah, well, we get the backstory all wrong, don't they? Because was it David Ayer says, but it was mainly Harley that killed whichever Robin it was.
Yeah, but then why doesn't he kill her?
Why did he?
It still doesn't make any sense. It still doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So
it makes less sense that he saves her.
Yeah. So the idea of continuity is there are elements that fans. And I know this is obviously subjective because I'm talking about what I think Batman is, but there are elements of, let's say, a series, and Batman is so big that it's been so ingrained in our minds that unless there's a good explanation for a change, that continuity has to be established or maintained. And if you omit stuff, that has to be explained too. So why don't you talk about the bat plane? If there's no bat plane or whatever, then it's not a big deal. Like, I'm not going to cry that there's no bat submarine or bat shark repellent or weird stuff like that, because that's not.
Or bat credit card.
Oh God, yeah. There's no need. Yeah, that would be scary if they started doing that. Any Schumacher version of that. Yeah. So there's stuff that is easily forgettable. Like, yep, there's this weird sort of in the ether Batman that no one wants to remember, and there's the serious stuff, which is trauma, training for so long, and striving not to kill because he's trying to make Gotham a better place.
Okay. Well, I mean, to ask you a question, Smud, do you understand why people thought that you saying Batman 1999 and Batman Begins share continuity, that blew some people's minds?
Well, they do, but that's fine.
No. So what you're referring to is like from a meta standpoint. It's carrying on the meta idea of Batman. But when most people use the term, it's in the same continuity about one film in relation to another, you're either talking about a sequel or a prequel.
Yeah, or at least in like the same shared universe.
That's the universal or the setting argument. Yes, I actually posted probably not the best example. Wikipedia is horrible for that, but the idea of things being the same, which is continuous, the same idea, whether it's within the same timeline or within the same franchise. I don't even know if it's the same franchise. That'd be something else, I guess, a franchise statement. But we're talking about lore ultimately. So it's the same, whether it's Nolan or 89 or Schumacher. There's some elements that have to be the same, and that's why the Schumacher versions didn't work so well.
Mm-hmm. But I swear I'm going to come and take away your Twitter. Okay.
Well, these are not easy things to say. Okay, these are. I mean, I
should have just said it the meta. Just say it shares the same continuity in the meta,
Well,
and that would have been far
it's
more
not
clear.
just meta. That's like after the fact. You actually look at the comic books from Legends of the Dark Knight or Nightfall, and it's like that's where you would go if you're going to make a Nightfall story. If you're going to make, I don't know, a Joker story again. Like there's specific Joker comics you can point to.
That is the meta. When you make an adaptation off that
is
all of a sudden
public
becomes meta.
gestalt stuff, which is, you could just argue Schumacher then, because that's part of the meta too.
I would say these especially these strange ways that American comic heroes work with their reboots and reiterations over half a century. I think that's a bit of a different story than we have a manga or an anime that is one thing that exists once, that is not rebooted 50 times. When you do that, you have your excuse to make. I'm gonna make my own version of this ancient thing that is basically a public good at that point. Basically, not legally, but essentially, if there is such a thing as American culture, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, they're part of that. But not every manga has that same level. And if we make a Lupin adaptation, for example, we would want the characters to be true to the manga and anime versions of those characters, in character and in looks. Fujiko is also a femme fatale, and you would expect her to have the sexy body with the cutesy demeanor. She does the cutesy femme fatale thing. In contrast to Faye. And you would Lupin want to be the Monkey King like variant of a James Bond that is just a super thief. You would want to be Jigen, the Chicago type gunman, and you would want that old samurai. The name escapes me. Who has this anachronistic garb and runs around with his sword, and has the same stupid hairdo that he still has. That is just as anachronistic. You would want these lookalikes, and not just take random actors. It helps having lookalikes.
Yeah, for marketing, surely, yeah.
Not just for marketing, for the final product. I mean, here's the thing. Do you want to just make a one-shot where you make a quick buck with, or do you want to have a thing that people will remember, rewatch, and maybe want to buy the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever it's next year, maybe Tesafilm?
Well, I mean, you could have Cowboy Bebop, market it like that, release Pulp Fiction, and people sure as heck are going to want to buy
Pulp
that
Fiction
DVD.
is an original work.
But what does it have to do with anything?
We're talking about adaptations.
No, my point is if you released a film like Pulp Fiction today, release a film of that quality, kind of regardless of how faithful it is, people are going to want to watch it again.
Okay, so would it be are you talking about a remake of Pulp Fiction?
No.
Or something, or a movie that is in the genre of Pulp Fiction.
He's saying if Cowboy Bebop pretty much became like instead of Cowboy Bebop, it's Pulp Fiction or something similar to Pulp Fiction.
And
right?
then it's already a different genre. Then you already made a change in the core of the thing, because Cowboy Bebop is a sci-fi noir. That's not Pulp Fiction.
Sure, yeah. No one's disagreeing that it's a massive change, but I know you agree with this, Wisp. People would still probably love it because people love Pulp Fiction.
Who are the people? Who are the people who would probably love it?
Let me say,
certainly not the original fans.
Yeah, let me say this.
Why do you hate the fans? Why don't you give a crap about them? Why does it seem like you want to actively discard them? Why do you want to take something from them and justify doing something completely different with the thing that they love?
Cinema, we already agreed. Like, okay, objectively, it can be good, sure. what we're saying is like it will alienate. So some fans, like Wisp said, it's going to be a completely different genre. So you're already going to alienate some fans that aren't into Pulp Fiction. By the way,
the question is, why do you want to? Yeah, why do you want to make the changes in the first place?
Yeah, it's like here's the thing. I never watched Pulp Fiction until I was like 17, and I was watching it with a friend because I never held any interest. It wasn't my kind of movie. So, say someone similar to me who loves Cowboy Bebop because of its like atmosphere and its story, and then I'm just seeing Pulp Fiction, I'll just lose interest. I can, or at least potentially speaking.
Maybe.
I could it's like I said, it's not a very good not a very good business decision because you will lose. And people will
and your magical wider audience doesn't exist.
People will see you as like, okay, these people are liars. Even if this thing is good, these people are liars, and they are giving us a different product, a completely different product from what we want or from what they promised. Worse. So why would we trust them? Why would we follow them?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tadros. Just to quickly address one of Wisp's questions, a lot of people ask this, and I don't understand why they don't get it. Not to be condescending, I'm sorry, but they ask, why would you make changes to an adaptation?
These changes specifically, not things you are. So when you make an adaptation that is going from one medium to another, you have to tell some things differently because of the limitations and possibilities of that medium. Some things you can do less well, others you can do better. For example, in anything written as well as a comic, it is very easy to use internal dialogue and to include other things in descriptions. If you translate it into a visual medium, outside of a comic. That's kind of a hybrid. But into film, you have to make certain concessions and do and to get these things into it, translated, you have to the language. Are you okay, Hawk?
Oh, sorry, I thought I was still muted. Carry on.
Okay. So you have to the language on how to convey these things is different in film. That's okay. Those changes are not the issue. But to completely change a character or completely change the plot, which usually comes around with changing a character, because then the plot kind of works different in certain aspects, those are major changes that are not justified. That is not because of, this is a different medium. We have to adapt to the medium.
Oh, I'm really
this is a deliberate change that you need very good justification to why are you making it.
Absolutely. So just to kind of like see how far you'll take this, what if you had a story that was really good except for one character that just sucked? Would you be okay with fundamentally changing that character?
Like taking out Tom Bombadil from Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I like the so I found him silly as a kid. It might have blown the movies out of proportion. I didn't hate him. I just found him silly. I usually find the when it goes into singing and poetry in fantasy books, I find that a bit silly because most of the time it isn't done that well. What I mean to say is, the part I would have liked to see is things around the Tom Bombadil arc, like being eaten by the trees, but even more so the Hillgrave, the real hill, where they fall into the Hillgrave, where they find the swords. In the movie, they're just given to the hobbits by Aragorn. So, and these are some changes to the other medium that we can talk about for various reasons. Because movies are already so big, what are we gonna leave out? Well, how about the stuff that half the fans have issues with? Okay, there you have a justification that can make sense. It's a special situation. But why do you do that in cases where you do not have these reasonable justifications. What is the reasonable justification to change Faye?
Well, I mean, again, I haven't seen the show. I thought that having heals when it seemed like she was in combat situations seemed kind of stupid.
Could it be that sometimes you have heals because you're femme fatale and do the sexy thing, and then you get caught up in an action scene because you don't know there's an action scene coming?
Sure.
Well, they're boots, so they're not. I know in the intro to the anime, she's wearing very high heels, but in the actual show, she just wears boots, and they're maybe, I think, 1 or 2 inches tall. I don't know exactly, but she does move around. She kicks indoors. She fights and punches and kicks as well. So she does. She gets physical, but not very much.
Okay. Well, I'm just glad that y'all are willing to accept positive changes to an adaptation and not just mindlessly clinging to it because it's not the same.
Okay, give me the positive changes about the Cowboy Bebop adaptation.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen it.
No, he means in general.
Well, you're trying to sell me that all these changes are totally fine somehow.
They could be. They could be great. It'd be better than the original.
It is. So here's what's infuriating me all the time. You're wibbly wobbly with no actual position and conviction, yet you complain that we have problems with the adaptation because they made changes, but you actually don't have any clue about what any of the changes are. What the original is. You don't even know what a femme fatale is.
Adios.
See you around.
See you, Smud. Thanks for letting me in.
Take it easy.
Maybe join in some other time.
No problem.
Yeah, so, CinemaSins, like, I think you're just talking in theory, like, I think we already kind of tackled all of it. I think we're just going in a little bit of a circle.
Yeah, probably.
Because, like,
There's no substance we're actually talking about here.
We already agreed that, okay, in theory, like in a very hypothetical situation where it's like completely imaginative, like out of our realm, that Netflix adaptation is great. It's Pulp Fiction, right? It's like Pulp Fiction. I'd say it is. But it has these significant changes of, like, say, different genre, different everything. These significant changes that are like, okay, you're going to lose fans because some people aren't, like, some people love these things for very subjective reasons. And, like, you can't stop that. So, yes, sure. That Faye, for all we know, could be the best character of all times, for all we know. But both in a marketing perspective, it's a bad idea. A business as well could, if she's the only change out of, like, everything else, I don't think it will be as damaging if she's the only change. But you will still lose people because there will be people who be like, okay, that's not Faye. I wasn't into that Faye. So
just looking online, it seems like Faye has a huge audience, so you're probably right.
Yeah, it's just like the analogy with the pie and the burger. The pie is great. The pie is beautiful. But the burger is... But we came for the burger.
Yep.
I didn't order pie. I think that's our main point, or at least that's my main point. Like,
I give you because my position may even surprise you. So, in Cowboy Bebop, I do not like Faye's character because I think she's a horrible woman. I do not like her outfit because I think it is silly. I don't like the style of it. She's my least favorite part of Cowboy Bebop. However, if you removed her or changed it, I would be upset because then it's not Cowboy Bebop anymore. The story wouldn't work the way it does. Her character is that way so that the story works. Her looks are that way because that fits her character. Doesn't matter what my personal tastes about that are. And I don't want that changed in an adaptation because if you want to make a faithful adaptation, you need to do that authentically. And when we're talking on one side about a substantial, concrete thing, and you are always jumping into
theoreticals.
hypothetical this, hypothetical that. Our problem is not some hypothetical thing where things could work, where things have sense, make sense. We're talking about very concrete things that Netflix is doing all the time, and that more and more reboots are doing all the time, where they constantly change things in certain ways, and where companies with long-established game franchises keep doing these exact changes.
Sure, yeah.
They're not doing it because, we think this is a good change, because it would make the show better. We know there's ideology behind it.
Well, I mean, okay, there's lots about which makes Bebop, and we even argued, or John even argued that how do you change perfection? You don't try and copy it. You do your own thing, which is like, oh dear, that's going to be tough. And when they reduce it to, I think, 11 episodes they're releasing, they have to cram in a lot of stuff very quickly. And if they don't understand the theme of, not melancholy, but the past catching up with you, you're going to have episodes dedicated to just those characters trying to deal with their past and how they go about doing that. And what you're going to end up having is like this pseudo Bebop experience where, Faye is going through her flashback about growing up in this house, and then maybe she'll go visit that house like they did in the show. And if they don't do that, you have to have some other proxy that does that element, because without that episode, Faye is just a piece of, a lady on the side. Without Ed and her background with her dad, like that, it's just a crazy, goofy dude or girl. So there's all these elements of how do we tell this profound character or profound element of a character quickly and not the same way, and also pay homage to the concept of your past catching up with you. So either they're going to get Ed, boom, 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 stuff happens, and they leave Ed or lose Ed, and then Spike has to die now. And you're like, oh, all right. It's never gonna get it right if they don't try to mimic it as best as possible, and that's why the length of the shows or the visual elements, like they're trying to condense everything very quickly, and that's not going to work. It's just
they'll have to do major rewrites.
Well, that won't work. You can't just start. Okay, now we're going to have all this dialogue. It's like that's not Bebop. We're going to have brand new music. It's like that might work, but you won't be able to listen to it
because you just cut out major plot points.
Oh, they are. They have to. Yeah, that's the problem. So I don't know how they're going to connect Spike and his 5-episode plot together. I don't know how they're going to connect Faye or Jet. Like, is Jet going to go have that issue with was it the Honky Tonk Blues or? No. It was the one with it was the noir episode where he deals with his past wife. Like, is he going to meet his wife? So these sorts of things are going to be like, okay, here's the Netflix version of that. Like, oh, and if they
is Ed even in this?
Sorry,
is Ed even?
We
in
haven't
this?
seen her yet. We don't know, and I think so though. And if we don't, then it's just gonna be Ersatz Netflix version, and it's already gonna be bad on that alone, just on principle alone. So that's we're seeing this before it even happens. And that's what's sad. And it might be fun. It might be fun to watch as its own thing, but it's not Bebop, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's a tragedy. Maybe we'll see. But I mean, I think I've said pretty much all I had to add on adaptation. I think we agree on some things. Maybe we disagree on others. Is there anything y'all wanted to ask me or like poke at before I go?
Well, I know you're working on a video here or there. Do you have anything coming up that you wanted to mention or plug?
Well, I mean, you could subscribe to my channel, Cinema Sins But Good, if you wanted. You probably should, because my new video in a week or two or whenever it comes out is going to be phenomenal. But until then, there won't be anything.
Okay. One more week, guys. There we go.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
All right. Well, we're going to go through some donations and super chats, if that's okay with everyone. I don't know if there are stream. Are there stream memes, guys? I have no idea.
A few.
Just give me 5 seconds. I'll give them a check.
Okay. Whew. Let me just scroll back here. Here we go. The Mechanist. Thank you for the $1.11. Gonna be honest, I see a bunch of black people dressed nicely. I have to check it. It's Sunday, or Mr. Big is in town, and some Fed got whacked. Also, where I'm from, some churches do their stuff on Wednesdays, and people dress nice on that day. Okay, good to know. Thank you, sir. Never apologize if you look at the lunatics who donate here. Smud ain't losing no subs. We got you. Also, a character's race can define who they are, especially in a fictional setting. Compare elites and brutes from Halo. Same team, but different MOs. That's specific to a science fiction idea where you have cloned or created people or dominated species, and they have a certain mode of behavior. You're right. So, but that's literally the nature argument, because you're making these people or you're correcting them. So. Francis Ford Coppola. I'm gonna blow Cinema Sin's mind here. Faye Valentine is in the anime, and manga is a Singaporean woman, an Asian. Her childhood videoed growing up showing that, and they casted a Latina. So again, another point in the court of not looking like Faye. Okay, I mean that's not a big problem. I tend to see it as, is she attractive? And I would say that Daniela is an attractive lady, even though she's like 12 years older. And I mentioned that in my video, where women can get away with it for many reasons, but men like John Cho, who's at least 20 years older, doesn't quite fit the bill. But that was even with a problem that John Cho was given, and why they gave him the role. And obviously he accepted it, because of course he would. Lucky him. Anyway, one more from Francis. Is CinemaSins arguing that how a character looks doesn't matter? Like, dude, if what the character looked like didn't matter, it wouldn't have been drawn that way. The author would have made a stick figure or written a goddamn book. Adaptations can do things that are possible, and in some cases with anime are impossible. Like hair. There's lots of hair in anime that is, don't even try it. It's too crazy. Anything from Final Fantasy, just throw it out the door. It's garbage. It's not going to look right. So, it depends on what limitations you're given from the medium, as Wisp said before. So, to Tim 505 is from Super Chats now. What if a Superman movie came out and he looked like the Sub-Zero? Do you think looks still don't matter? Well, that's where we're talking about the continuity between what we know of Superman, or books we've read, or other Superman movies, and how that's translated on film. There has to be an explanation why he looks like Sub-Zero. That was kind of a problem in the was it Krypton? What was that series called? Was it the CW? I can't remember where it was broadcast. I never watched it, but it was this tale of Superman's biological dad, I believe. And it felt too much, or looked too much like common standard modern Earth, which probably not the best look, but yeah. Adaptations have to be faithful to what they're coming from, fortunately. Okay, White Knight Leo, here we go. FWIW. Is that an acronym for something? FWIW? Your tweets were inartful, but not wrong. Okay, well, that's something at least. I can accept that. I agree with EFAP that adaptation and writing quality are separate variables, but also with Gaiman's tweet. Oh, it's a great tweet from Gaiman about Batman, and that's the reporter with a pet bat. That is to say, if he were to recreate Batman, that's how he would do it, which would be his own, or not his own creation, obviously, but with Gaiman, I mean, I don't care if he's making Batman or remaking Batman in his own image. I can say Gaiman knows what the hell he's doing. He has worked with DC before. He has used some of the characters in his comics on Sandman. And if he wanted to reinvent anything, I say go for it, because we know he's going to do a good job. So that's kind of like a studio in anime. We can respect that they're probably going to do a good job just because of their quality standards, no matter what they're given. With Gaiman, it's like, I've never seen him screw up. Like, I don't know any book I don't like from him. I'm sure there's a short story that I think is stupid, but I can't remember. White Knight Leo, one more time. They didn't even get Spike's gun right. Jeez, I didn't even notice that. I don't think the images were that high quality. It's a Jericho, right? It's a Jericho, I think.
Yes, it is Jericho. I actually looked up.
Yeah. Okay. If the images were higher quality, I mean, this is really geeky, but this is what we freak out about. Non-Vitae Rex, how you do, sir? $10. All right. Is it accurate to classify it as taking it from the fans? The source material is still there. I guess it applies to something like TLJ, as it directly damages the characters and world building. Well, that's a very unique topic of adaptation and expectations, because when you talk about Star Wars or a series has already its own expectations going into it. So Star Wars, you assume the basics, lightsaber fights, force battles, philosophy of good versus evil, starship fights, pick up a theme here and there, but that's what you expect. If you don't get that, what's the point? And the argument for subversion or not living up to expectations when the actual thing which is there isn't very good, and you're left with scratching your head was what the point of that was. That did not cause a plot to go forward anywhere. It did not cause character development to occur. People died, and you ended up in the same place you were at the beginning. That's two strikes. I don't know. I don't know why people like it. Couldn't tell you. Last one, Alex Halo, of course. Anime live actions adaptations are known for almost always being terrible, and more likely if people working on it insult the original. That's sad, because I have not seen too many Japanese anime adaptations. I think there were a few of Detective Conan, or I think there was the Death Note ones I saw, and they were actually okay. I mean, they were a little goofy, but when you have a character like L, who's a hunchback and saying crazy shit, and his hair is all weird, and he's supposed to be some super detective, it's like, all right, this is goofy, but that's the show. Looks weird in real life. One more, White Knight Leo, then we'll get to the memes. This has been going on long enough, I think. Angelina Jolie wore pads in Tomb Raider because breast size does matter. If only for adaptation aesthetics. Flat-chested Lara appeals to no fans. Now, this is before her surgery.
I already thought she was flat, but that was with pads?
Yeah, but this is before her cancer, right? So, and even then, I don't care. It doesn't bother me if she has pads or not. She looked good.
It matters to a 15-year-old who played Tomb Raider.
Okay. All right. Would that 15-year-old be you?
And others.
Okay, all right.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, stream memes, finally. Oh, boy. Just a few, thankfully. All right, September 1st, thank you.
If they get Chris Hemsworth and Jason Momoa shirtless, why can't we get Lara look-alike?
Interesting. I don't know. Okay, thief.
Next question.
Someone's screaming thief. We got a bunch of people beating them up. Murderer. A bunch of people beating them up. Racist. Then we got entire crowd jumping on Zoom. Well, I'm glad I didn't, kill anyone. Personally. I think my lawyer would say, yeah, I wish you were just racist.
Yes, that was your lawyer. Being racist wasn't the worst thing that was done today. We could have got off on that.
People on Twitter are calling you racist. Oh no. Anyway.
When LiteratureDevil calls you racist, it has no meaning.
Well, I always ask. I never get a clear response. It's very difficult to...
Yeah, but remember, I got called an alt-right, leftist, communist, Nazi, misogynistic piece of shit for not liking The Force Awakens. So.
You're clearly a witch. Why? I feel you are a witch. Okay. Admission.
Yeah, it was. Well, I didn't even say it was that bad. All I said was, it was an average movie. I got attacked so badly, and this is before TLG TLJ came out and stuff. So, oh well, you get used to it. But now that I'm off Twitter, it's bliss. It's wonderful.
All right, here's the. We saw this before, but here's the anime version of Jessica Rabbit and the Netflix version of Jessica Rabbit. Okay.
You know, this really makes me want to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit now.
You know, it's
I might watch it.
It's a great film. It is.
That was a wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's push comes to shove, my favourite movie of all time.
Really?
Hmm.
Really, Hawk. Okay, I'll write that down so I can come to your eventual funeral and tell the world that his favorite movie.
Jesus fucking Christ!
Well,
Okay.
maybe if you go back to Twitter, they might kill you. I have no idea.
All I said was I really like them. I'm not telling my true thoughts on anything anymore.
It's ReZero. Oh, manga, anime, and Netflix adaptation. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that looks about right.
Oh, dear. Okay.
Oh.
Okay, I made you a live-action Death Note movie. Oh, boy. It was unfaithful and terrible. You expect me to watch the anime before making the movie? Just for that, you're getting a live-action Dragon Ball movie with no Krillin. What?
But it could be good.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, there's possibilities
Yeah,
there.
in theory.
Manga, anime, live-action. Yeah, thanks.
I made this cake with cyanide, but it could be good.
Might not kill you. That's right. Anime.
Mm.
There's the lineup. And Netflix adaptation. I only wish if that was the case.
I really do.
It's not that far off.
You know?
I mean,
yeah.
look at this Faye. At least she's more top heavy. Yeah.
Well.
I don't know anything about anime, so I'm just going to laugh along.
Lol XD Lamau.
Yeah.
Black Lagoon is fun.
I never watched Cowboy Bebop. I'm just like saying, I'm saying things from the information I've gathered. That's it.
Well, you know, take your time. It's a great anime. Might not be your thing. It's not for everyone, but it is fun to watch. So
It's mostly chill.
yeah, it's great. All right, successful anime adaptation and Netflix. But it's still possible, right, guys? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As you're about to realize you're falling into the abyss.
Yeah. Here, Alex Halo. Netflix is making it another live-action anime series. This time it's Cowboy Bebop. What y'all think? Personally, I expect it to be crap based on previous attempts. That's not really a meme. That's just you talking to us, Alex.
I think that's because Alex got annoyed with the super chats and he wasn't able to put stuff in, so he went, I'll make a meme instead. I'll look at that.
It's me.
Twitter doesn't like you. Wee. Thank you, Hawk. That was great.
Yeah. I spent ages working on that.
All right.
I've been quiet off stream.
Oh, we lost Cinema Sins. I'm sorry. I didn't know he left.
Did he say like anything? Like,
I think he said he was going.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Oh,
sorry, Cinema Sins. Thank you for you know,
Oh my god.
putting up with Wisp's rants and questions and cross examinations and God knows what.
Oh yeah, blame me. Blame Wisp.
It's always Wisp's fault, guys. Remember that.
always blame the German.
Blame the German.
Mm-hmm.
And
A German
We're
using
used
Russian
to it.
language
yeah.
too.
We're used
Like
to it.
just remember. He uses the Russian language.
The Russian. Yeah, what was up with the Russian? I don't know what the hell you were doing there.
Yeah.
I said hello.
Why would you?
This was trying to prove her Prussian heritage.
She's trying to prove she's a commie secretly. It's Morse code.
Okay, next time it's
Douglas.
Polish.
Okay, well, here is White Knight Leo. Did I read this one? I guess I missed it. Angelina Jolie wore pads in Tomb Raider because her breast size does matter, if only for adaptation aesthetics.
Yeah.
Flat-chested Laura appeals to no fans. It's definitely part of the Laura look. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that was almost 3 hours of us talking about what I did on Twitter. Sorry about that. That was kind of boring, actually. I got a bit of a headache there and sort of nodded off, but Whis was thankfully not contributing to that, I hope. I don't know. I don't know how that works with the headache world, but, you know, we had fun.
Is that passive aggressive?
No, I'm in pain. I don't.
Is that like a personal attack or
Was that a
something?
rhetorical question?
That was. Oh God. Is there a question mark? Well, dude, it's still rhetorical. I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, thanks guys for tuning in. Always nice to talk about stuff we like anime, and not so much what happens on Twitter. But you know, it had to be said. I guess people wanted some answers, and they got them. I hope. And that's that. And it'll just keep
Really,
going on.
the main answer is Twitter's a cesspool. Don't bother with it.
Yeah, honestly, I do it because I got time to kill, and I like to exercise my brain, because you should do that when you have a belief or a point, and when you interact with others, there should be some conflict, which it does. But when all you're doing is surrounding yourself with name callers that are already made up your mind about you, there's really no point. Block them; they're useless.
Oh yeah, exactly. It was coming off of Twitter has been the best thing that I've ever done, because to be honest with you,
it grinds it ever.
Thank God.
Yeah, it was the same stuff. But it was the same stuff over and over and over. And like before I got suspended, thank God for that, I started seeing a lot of patterns with the same sort of account doing the same sort of things over and over again, and it was just like the same controversies, but with a different target. It just got repetitive, and it's just a bit like, wow, the cesspool's just swirling around. But
yep.
Anyhow.
Anyway, I'm gonna go get a drink or lie down, or you know, the usual thing, whiskey.
Just do something. I'm also going to try and see if I can shift this fucking cough. I'm so sorry, but I started coughing over your talking Wisp as well.
There's always the option of getting another girlfriend, so you know.
I swear to God.
No, this one puts up with me. So
what Cinema said, like, do you guys have any question? And immediately Hawk coughs. I was like, nice, great time.
What are the only questions? I was like, no. Sorry. I've got to go. I'll see you a lot later.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a great night.